Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular significance if you drive an electric vehicle. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Father of a Stolen Child, 10th Man, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm very well. How are you all? How's everyone in Discord?
Hello from Discord. Doing well. How are you guys?
Hey,
One of you is still on mute.
we got
so-
some sounds from Discord.
Yeah, nice. Makes a change. Let's do a bit of housekeeping.
Lively bunch.
Yeah, I've got a couple of replies, Neil. Can't moan. Can't grumble. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curvature?
Well, you're going to need a radius value first to get that, and we don't have that.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
I'm afraid it's the same answer for that.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Any evidence of the distance to the Sun?
I think I took the words out of his mouth.
What is the sun anyway?
That I do not know, Neil, I'm afraid, but any evidence of the distance to it?
Need an R value first.
We
I heard
would.
them saying that you could triangulate. Heard some ballers saying that, and I think it was Gems or Gem Pandas.
They can triangulate to get the distance to the Sun after they insert an R value, but where do they get a straight line to triangulate?
I think that's where they get messed up. So I don't think you can know the distance to the sun.
No. I mean, the flat earthers would also assert the same in some instances, but when they do so, they're not inserting an R after they triangulate. And they're not also assuming that they live in atmosphere, sphere-shaped air to never get a straight line to do so. So in many ways, you could argue that the flat earthers' justification for their 3,000 kilometres, or forget however high, it's been such a long time. Very few flat earthers come here to put their fundy flat earth position to us. But there we go. Yeah, they've got more justification with it because they don't have to justify refraction and curved surfaces that don't give them baselines that are straight, etc., etc. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
You definitely need an R for that.
Nope.
Right, any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
If you're a heliocentrist, you would need R to assert any hypothesis.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Not without a radius.
Any evidence you can have gas pressure without a container? This is going swimmingly.
That's a negative.
Even if you had R, you still need a container to have gas pressure.
Is that it? I think we've covered them all, haven't we?
Molten iron core?
Covered it? I think that's
Yeah,
it.
you need R.
I haven't asked for R. There you go. Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
That's a negative.
Well, that would be the first thing they would have to prove, wouldn't it? That would be, that's the sticking point of this whole debate is they can't measure it. And if they can't measure it, they can't assert it as real.
Right on.
The
That is
proof
the
for
crux.
R is terrestrial refraction.
Again,
The proof for R is terrestrial refraction.
that
It
assumes
has
R.
R in it.
Well, it's got R in it. That doesn't mean it's proof of it. Quite the contrary.
It's the proof it exists
Is it?
in the math.
It exists in the maths, yes. Well done. That was quick. I thought that was going to be a lot more painful, Arwin.
I thought it was going to be like, well, why would you be asking for it if it didn't exist, huh? Huh?
I was going to say that, sort of, but
That's where I thought it was going to. But it exists in the maths, yeah. That's all right. The health and welfare of unicorns can exist in maths.
yeah, but it doesn't really. Like, how many books are unicorn mechanics written down that are standard used by society?
Oh, that's right. Attack my farcical analogy. How was your show today, Arwin?
Meh.
Meh? Okay, fair enough. Ask someone else. Anybody from Discord had any nice discussions on their travels? Interesting talking points? New fundamentalist religious zealot globe beliefs put forward as proofs? Anything of that nature?
No, I did have a talk with the woman over where I was fishing yesterday, and we discussed flat Earth, and she's like, "Yeah, I don't believe any of the crap they tell us." And she started saying, "Do you think we landed on the moon? That's so." I was like, "Oh my god, yeah, yeah." See, when you're close, when people go outside, they understand where they live.
That was a random person, was it?
Yeah, it was. I put the picture in the mainstream. Like, I don't have her face on it because I had this picture before, so I'm going to get a picture of her face too. But they walk their dogs, and they're all, there's a whole slew of these people. And they have dogs, and they just walk them around this place where I fish. So I pretty much know all of them. And I started talking to her. Well, I've been talking to her off and on, but I started talking to her yesterday. Somehow it came up. And I said, I don't know if you're going to want to stop and talk to me anymore after I say what I'm going to say. So I said, we're not living on a spinning water ball flying through an infinite vacuum, She says, yeah. I said, all the NASA stuff. She said, oh. And then she started talking about the moon landing. I was like, right. I said, we're living on a flat, stationary Earth. She says, yeah, I agree. It was that simple. Everybody just about pretty much that I ever talked to around here agrees that we're living on a flat and stationary Earth.
So you're saying it's ever creeping closer to the accepted as always being known to be true stage?
Yeah, a lot of these people don't know anything about this movement. They just understand the Earth is flat. They don't know diddly squat about what's going on. Most of these people with, this whole thing that we're doing. They don't know anything about it. They don't watch YouTube, they don't. And if they do, they're watching dogs or cats and, funny stuff. You know what I mean? They're not. They're just down to earth people,
I'm not following.
They don't care. They don't get involved with the rhetoric.
How do they know then? How have they come across this information if they're absolutely nothing to do with the current resurgence of flat Earth?
Just observation. Just looking, just seeing. It's obvious the sun's right there. The other day, the clouds filtered it so perfectly, it looked like an exact circular disc. So I don't know what kind of filters these people are using to shrink it down into almost nothingness, but I saw the disc yesterday. And I was trying to get my wife to look at it. She has a problem doing that. So I said, look, it's filtered perfectly. It was a perfect circle.
Cool. Well, I've just been signed out
Right
accidentally,
there,
so
right there.
it's just us in Discord for the. That's if I'm still live streaming, which I may not be. I still appear to be live. Let's just check on my live feed. I'm actually. No, it doesn't look like I am. Ah, damn you. Well, this will continue as a recording until I figure out the problem. Hopefully you can help me
No,
out
you're
and
good.
chat amongst yourselves while I'm doing this, though.
Oh. Yeah, he's not good. That's messed up.
These things happen. I'm not going to stress. I'm just going to sort it out. And if there's loads of dead air, I blame you lot because I've got to do this, figure it out. Bear with me.
So I don't, nobody else talks to people outside. Like, does anybody else live sort of semi-country, mountains, whatever, like where people, when they look, they understand what reality is and they just don't talk about it. But when you talk to them, you get their understanding. Like, yeah, the sun's right there. How far do they say it is again? If I say like 93 million miles, they just laugh because it's so ridiculous. Sun's right there. The moon's right there at night, same size. People observe things around here. And yet, I might say a disturbing amount of these people, not necessarily the people I talked about flat Earth, but the people around are just living in fear. And that's all I'll say about that. It's just fear, right in the air. I don't know. But yeah, anybody who doesn't get out and talk to people
That
and mention,
has to
try to
work
get it in the
because it's
conversation,
angles.
you're not.
And then they'll try to make that angle work on a curved surface, which is impossible. So they're really in trouble.
Oh yeah,
Agreed.
And we're
but
back.
they just keep trying to talk around it, dude. You know, they just keep saying you're
Oh.
wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, and they just the delusion just keeps them set right where they're at.
There's that guy named Level 2. He won't come on the show, but he's always saying stuff, and he owns a sextant. So, and he says he uses it. I have no doubt he does, and I have no doubt it works. But it's not working on a curved surface because you need a flat baseline.
And that flat baseline extends out to the GP of any star you can see in the sky.
Absolutely.
And you're
So
not
that's-
getting it from the center of Earth, that's for sure.
Well, that's the closer right there. Is that any star you can see in the sky requires a flat baseline to its ground position, zenith. So
Yeah, that's
it
it.
requires a flat plane. That's why it's a flat Earth proof.
Yeah, the hits keep coming, like the foolish sayings. Oh yeah, the sextant's an angle measuring device, but you can't triangulate with it. Well, if it's an angle measuring device, what prevents it from being used to triangulate?
Triangulate.
They said it's an. Hold on a minute. They said it was an angle measuring device, but you don't triangulate with it.
Correct.
That has to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Indeed.
Well, but they do say it because they have nothing else to say.
Well, I
And
mean,
then-
that's wandering
then-
down the path of retardation, though.
Yeah,
How
but
can you
that's-
argue with something so stupid?
Well, that's after I posted all the references saying the sextant is used for triangulation. Then QE had a show on the sextant, which he invited me on. And he posted new ones that I hadn't even posted that said using the sextant is for triangulation. So we've got references, citations, whatever you want to call them at this point, from their own side, saying that the sextant is used to triangulate. And then where do they go from that? All we have to do is just listen to the responses that aren't well thought out, because they have to fight for a globe despite the facts that are presented before them.
Hey, we didn't even lose the live stream in that whole process. I thought we'd completely lost everything, and the live stream's still going when I connected back up. That's good.
Neil kept the show going too.
Yeah, whoever put the magic spell on the live show to keep it running, because I was just about to launch into restarting the live show, thinking, oh god, this is going to be a 10-minute minimum task, probably 15, and I just loaded it, and there it was. It was still working. So hello everyone in chat. You could obviously, I don't know how much. Maybe people could tell me in chat how much of that you actually got to hear. Was there any issue? Was it just my end, but the live stream carried on while I was sorting out the technical issue? It'd be nice to know. Just let me know from chat if you can. Thank you very much. Very weird.
But yeah, if the best rebuttal they have is to say that, you know, the way you triangulate your position with the sextant doesn't use triangles, then, you know, they're just so far gone that they'll never accept reality. You know, it's just, I don't know what you do with that.
Well, what we can do with that is, if Nathan's willing, go to Master B, and I've got a series of slides that will deal with it right now.
Yeah, sure. As I'm running live, and everything seems to be okay, I don't see the reason why not. I've just gone from super, you know, you go from like uber tense, super stressed to, oh, everything's fine. I'm kind of a bit like that. Do you want these green and black ones? Yeah.
Let's see which one. No, go to the top. Start from the other direction.
So
that's right after your, right after your
meet invitation. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. All right.
Okay. So we've got. I don't know, it's Polaris first slide, right?
Yeah, Polaris. So here's Polaris in the sky, right? And you're on the ocean right there. Next slide will show a right angle. Polaris is directly over somewhere on the Earth. That's zenith straight line down, as you can see now. And there's your baseline, and you're here at the bottom of the picture with your sextant, and you're getting the angle to it. Next slide shows exactly what I just described with the sextant. And instead of the sun in this one, just imagine it's Polaris or any other star at any point. And this is how sextant works. It finds an angle. You can't find an angle without straight lines. You need a vertex. Next slide. Right angle. What is it? These are examples of right angles. You got a protractor and the sextant, even in their own books. This is your books, ballers, is a glorified protractor. You can see what a 90 degree is. You can see two lines that meet at a right angle are perpendicular. No escaping this. Next slide. We have that imagery that I asked you to have in your mind shown here in the picture of a navigator with his aid saying mark, and then he reads the degrees and the minutes of the sextant, but first they take down the time. They need the time as well. Next slide will show what a vertex is. Corner, a much needed corner. This is where the observer is, where the two lines meet. Following slide. In a very real sense, that's all there's to it. In principle, with globe in hand, you can go out on the deck with your sextant, measure the altitude of 3 stars, plot the GPs of those stars on the globe, subtract the altitudes you shot from 90 degrees. Pause and think for a minute if you still believe you are in the ball and a sextant can work on a curved surface. Subtract the altitudes you shot from 90 degrees to determine the size of the circle. That's the circle of equal altitude, by the way, in degrees to draw around each of the respective GPs, geographical position, where the three circles intersect is your position. You all see the 90-degree box under each star. Next slide, please. Showing one circle of equal altitude. In this illustration, you are somewhere on the circle of equal altitude around the GP of the object. But where? That circle could be thousands of miles in circumference. The answer is simple. Measure the altitude of two more celestial bodies. Where the three circles of equal altitude intersect is your location on the globe. Now, is that possible? Since we just found out you need a bottom base line to be straight all the way to the GP. Can this work on the globe? No, but they have to put that in there. Next slide. You can see here from one of the navigation explanation video sites that I go to that they've got how it works with a ship. And this is already showing the dip correction because the red line is already at the water line. And there's the star, there's the 90 degrees of the star, and there's your corner where the ship is for the zenith. The following slide, and they did this, not me. We had to laugh at it before. They showed this on that globe, which is really a picture of what I read on that other slide prior to this. It can't happen on the globe because you see, you can't triangulate without a baseline. This one's going out into space. It's impossible. Let that sink in for a little bit. Let's go to the black and white old videos of how the Navy depicts how a sextant works. So here we got the navigator and his aide in full uniform. Next slide shows a star and its GP and the ship where these two are. And you could see there a 90 degree. The next one will show the sextant altitude angle to it. You see the angle there. Follow up the following star page. You'll see that anywhere around that circle with that same altitude, it'll be the same distance. The next one shows the circle. So circle of equal altitude. Anywhere on the circle is the same angle. Next slide will show two stars directly over the Earth with its GP. Of course, there's a ship in the middle somewhere. The following slide will show the sextant being used to triangulate the GPs of those stars to the ship, where the zenith and baseline give you the vertex. That's you.
With his 10th, he'd broken up. Oh no.
Because you knew from your logbook that you're on this part of the crossing, not the other one. And by the way, these circles could be thousands of miles of radius, and the diameter would be double that. On the flat plane. The next slide shows a similar viewing, except it shows you on the ship and then a star in the distance with a straight zenith line to the GP. And here, the following slide will show where north is. And this is how you do your azimuth. So you come with that circle drawing from north going clockwise until you hit where you sighted that star. And now you set the bearing. This is how you get your bearing with the compass, the direction. Next slide shows, all right, so where we got the bearing, we know the star is over there. But where are we actually? Because we used our dead reckoning and our assumed position to figure this out. But when we go to the nautical almanac, we see that our angle should be this, but it's that, meaning our best guess is off by a little bit. So you make the correction, because in the almanac, it tells you exactly, for example, if this was 50 degrees, it tells you where it should be. But you were assuming maybe from 52 degrees or something. And they say, oh, okay, since I got the bearing, I'll just move my line up a bit or move it the other way, depending what the book said. And then you know now where you fix this exactly from your assumed position because you had the bearing. And then the last slide here will show you do that with 3 stars and you get a fix.
They're so
2021.
screwed.
2021, year of the sextant.
They are so screwed.
Excellent. That was great. That was the most comprehensive presentation you've done to date, 10th. That was really good.
Thank you. It gets better and better.
Yeah.
I would like to point out something that 10th said about the circle equal altitude.
Feel free.
Yeah, the circle equal altitude requires a flat baseline with parallel zeniths. Otherwise, it would be like a cone of divergent zeniths, not a circle of equal altitude.
Just take her outside.
Kids outside.
Just take her outside.
Show where the sun is. It's right there.
Go show
It's
how to
raining
use the
here.
sextant.
Your daughter rumpused you and completely ruined your point.
Yeah, she's great.
Well, she didn't ruin your
Bunch of
point.
1.22 miles.
She stole your thunder. That's the one.
Well, John is exactly right there. Impossible to have a circle of equal altitude on the globe.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Brian. Good to have you.
Hey, Nathan. How are things?
Pretty bad. Technically speaking.
Yeah, I thought so.
If you were a religious fundy, this would be the moment to join, because you should catch me in the midst of trying to figure why things have gone wrong out, which I shouldn't really be doing. I should be concentrating. But there we go. How are you, Brian?
I'm good. Just listening in.
I haven't had a chance
missed a lot of the shows.
I haven't seen you short yet. I'm really sorry.
Which one? I brought out two. One is about gravity. The other one is about out rotation.
It's the rotation one I've not seen.
Yeah. Yeah, well, if you want, I'll tell you about it, or I'll leave you watch it. I don't mind. But,
Or I could dig it out. Do you want me to add to my workload and dig it out and play it? Because it's probably only... Right, it's less than 60 seconds. I know that much.
only 40 seconds. Yeah, but you don't have to. I mean, we're on the sextant. It's fine. You don't have to. It's up to you, though. I don't mind. If you're busy enough, it's...
Because it's less than 60 seconds, I bet you anything you could rattle off exactly what you said in the short. So do you want to do that?
Yeah, I don't need to, but yeah, you don't need to do that. No, what I said was, what is the globe's answer for the fact that from my location on the 21st of December, solar noon is 4 minutes sooner than on the 21st of June? And everyone came back to me in comments with, it's the offset elliptical orbit, Kepler's Annalena. It's like, no, because I know all about Kepler's Annalena. I know about it for years. I know where its origins is. I know everything, almost everything there is to know about it. This is a rotation issue. Sunrise, sunset, and solar noon is rotation. So 4 minutes difference officially. Now there may be, I'm not sure if there's even more, but there's officially 4 minutes. So on the 21st of December, there's a 4 minute difference in solar noon from then until June the 21st. So, I mean, what gives you solar noon on the globe? What gives you sunrise and sunset? Is it Kepler's offset elliptical orbit of the sun? No. It's only one thing, and that's rotation. So they have so now they have people coming back to me with ridiculous nonsense. They're trying to turn 4 minutes into 2 minutes. Just unbelievably stupid nonsense.
But for what
But,
purpose? I mean, is that okay? They're changing the amount of time, but presumably not arbitrarily. They've got a reason why they're going to change it to 2 because they can account for those 2, or what?
Nah, they just need to make it smaller and make it. They're trying to make it as insignificant as possible, so they can kind of hand wave it away. That's what they're trying to do, because that's what they have to do. They have to. They can't. They can't, like officially, there's a 4-minute difference, so it's not 15 degrees an hour then. You know what I mean? What about happened to Thanks Bob? And I even have them telling me. One of them telling me it's actually one or two of them actually telling me it's actually 15.04 degrees per hour. You know, this kind of nonsense. What happened to Thanks Bob with his exact 15 degrees or whatever? You know, what happened to Thanks Bob when there's a 4-minute difference of rotation on your model? Because that's what there has to be. That's what it has to be. All they can do is talk about the NLEMA. Sorry,
Okay.
now I know more about that than you know. Go on.
Did you have a question, John?
Yeah, the way I understood it, the sidereal day is what you're talking about, right? The 14.985 degrees that it's claimed the Earth rotates.
I'm talking about a 4-minute difference from December 21st to June 21st, which is the 2 solstices. Sorry, I can't say that word very well with an Irish accent.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking. Yeah, okay. They claim that the Earth isn't rotating a full 15 degrees because the rotation around the sun is changing the Earth's position relative to that. So, but that's what their claim is.
No, so their claim. So now their claim is that the Earth is not rotating a full 15. What happened to Thanks Bob? You know, that's completely another nonsense. I know Kepler's analemma, and I know it's the direction of the tilt. Well, the tilt is always in the one direction. The only changes in that is the position of the globe out around the sun. I know what they're talking about. It's totally not. What they're trying to do is make up for the fact that officially the sun is observed to move through the sky in the southern summer faster. That's what they're trying to make up for. But it still makes a 15 degree an hour rotation.
Okay,
It's
all right. Sorry, I don't have to say it again. So I'll summarise it. So the bottom line is there's a discrepancy between what we actually observe in the celestial movements versus the claim that the rotation of Earth is causing those celestial movements. And when you put that into a model, i.e. the heliocentric globe model with Earth's spin causing the day and the night to come along by way of its movement, causing a perceived deflection in the sun, that would be a Coriolis deflection. So it's not actually moving, it's us moving, right? Like us on a roundabout, that's what's claimed to be the cause of the movement of the sun coming up and going down. But modelled, there's a 4-minute discrepancy. That's basically it, right?
Well, it could even be more than a 4-minute discrepancy, but officially there's a 4-minute discrepancy. So they're only giving it 4 minutes. So I don't even know if there is only 4 minutes of a discrepancy. But one thing is for certain is that solar noon on a globe is based on rotation. Sunrise and sunset, rotation. Now, the sunrise and sunset might change for your location throughout the year due to your position on a globe out. It will they explain it as the change in your position away from the sun, blah blah blah. But it doesn't matter because solar noon is a rotation issue. You can't have a 4-minute earlier sun solar noon. You can't have the solar noon being 4 minutes earlier on a globe. It's supposed to rotate 15 degrees per hour all day, every day. That's the claim. They claim this. How come there's a 4-minute difference? And even in
the model's wrong. So the model's wrong. Do you remember when Wakey interviewed an astrophysicist, just didn't tell him that he was a flat earther? And when he highlighted an error with the model, her response was to say, oh, well, then we just have to change the model. That was her response.
They already did that. They call it the sidereal day.
There you go.
Sidereal day is the movement of the stars. So that doesn't work because the sidereal day is what gives you let's say astrology, what puts the sun into different astrological signs throughout the year. That's the sidereal day. There's a difference that the stars move faster than the sun in the heliocentric model.
Well,
but in general, the stars are moving
I'll post
around.
it.
The stars and sun don't have the same movement, same rate of movement. So sidereal day is about the stars moving. Like we're told we have a 15-degree an hour rotation on their globe, right? That means everything in the sky is not moving. We're moving. We're the ones moving. So regardless of an offset elliptical orbit around our sun, right, there's supposed to be a 15-degree an hour rotation. That's supposed to give us sunrise and sunset and solar noon daily. And what happens? Thanks, Bob. Now, I'm not trying to support Bob, but that's what they do. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Bob, for several years, since 2018. But now there's a 4-minute difference. Well, not now, there's always been a 4-minute difference. But the point is, 4 minutes difference. So there's not a 15-degree an hour rotation.
That's a yearly 4-minute difference, though, right?
Every 6 months, twice a year.
I thought it was a 2-minute difference every 6 months.
4 minutes every 6 months.
Yeah, it's like 4 seconds a day.
I think Rams was trying to say something about it there, was that?
I think it's 4 minutes a day, because what the one of the days is 23 hours and 56 seconds. Oh yeah, 4 seconds a day. Yeah, sorry, 4 seconds a day. You're right.
Yeah, that's right. It's 4 minutes a day. Yep.
Yeah, but the solar day and the sidereal day are different. This is the thing, you see. This is the nonsense. This is the trick. The solar day is 24 hours. The sidereal day is 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4 seconds. That's the sidereal day, if I remember correctly. Those two, if those two don't change, the sun doesn't end up having the same length of day as the stars. The sidereal and solar day is different. That's why as I said, in astrology, when they say in astrology, oh, the sun is in this sign or the sun is in that sign, that's because the two different rates of movement, the stars and the sun, the two different rates of movement.
I was talking to Puppy about this the other day, I think, and he was saying, yeah, it's because of how much the Earth has moved in a day, in its orbit around the sun, and that's where the 4-minute adjustment is because of that.
Nah, he's talking out of his backside. He's talking out his horn. Sorry for the language. Load of rubbish. We're supposed to have a 15-degree an hour rotation. Kepler's analemma and the offset elliptical orbit of the sun has absolutely nothing to do with the 15-degree an hour rotation. 15-degree an hour rotation is what gives us sunrise, sunset, and solar noon on the globe. There's a 4-minute difference twice a year. Do you know what I mean? 4-minute difference on December 21st, and 4-minute difference on June the 21st. Every year, all the time. And that's officially
it's the reason why 12 noon doesn't become 12 midnight every 6 months, right?
Yeah, but there's a lot of things involved in that. It's like the tilt, and there's a lot of nonsense involved in it. Why that doesn't happen? But the point is, see, this is the thing. They'll try and fluff up as much as they can and add in as much of Kepler's analemma as they possibly can, right, to avoid any talk about rotation. Solar noon is a rotation issue. 4-minute difference twice a year. So in the original sun cycle and the observations of the sun, the geocentric cycle, it's explained, but it's not explained when it comes to the Earth rotating at 15 degrees an hour, the globe out rotating at 15 degrees an hour all day, every day. Thanks, Bob, since 2018. What happened to thanks, Bob? You know what I mean?
Right on. I'm sure it'll generate some discussion in the comment section of this video also, Brian. This is the first time people on this channel have heard of this, right? From what I gathered from what you said a few minutes ago, the explanation wasn't a decrease in the rotational rate per hour. It was an increase, right, though? Because John challenged you and said, well, no, it's slightly less, but you were saying they were trying to add slightly more. So that's the only bit I was a bit confused on.
Well, no, I mean, if for solar noon to be 4 minutes earlier or 4 minutes later would mean there's a constant change in rotation of the globe. The globe would never rotate at a constant rate because it would have to always change its rate of rotation from June 24th to December 24th, and then from December 24th back to June 24th. It would have to. Because why do we get, what is solar noon? Why do we get it on the globe? Why do we have a sunrise and a sunset? What's the claim? A 15 degree an hour rotation. Kepler's analemma explains the seasons. That's what Kepler's analemma explains. And the change in position in the sky of the sun throughout the year. That's what Kepler's analemma explains. It also explains, the change in movement of the sun and rate of movement. It also explains that. When I say it, it explains it. It doesn't prove it. It just explains it. But it has nothing to do with all that time for the 6 months that from their aphelion to perihelion and perihelion back to aphelion, for both those 6 months periods, the globe Earth is doing an offset elliptical orbit of the heliocentric sun, but all day, every day, it's supposed to be rotating at 15 degrees an hour, and that's what gives us solar noon, sunrise, and sunset. Do you understand? It's
yeah, I'm following along perfectly.
issue. Yeah.
I know you're talking metaphorically to the people out there, but yeah, I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, but they have to just show, oh, it's the orbit of the sun, it's Kepler's analemma. It's like, no. I mean, I wouldn't have put out the video if I hadn't already done my research. I even did a whole presentation on Kepler's analemma back in 2017.
Just 1 second, Brian. Go ahead, Andrew C. You're really quiet, Andrew. Hold on. Andrew C. Can you get closer to your mic, Andrew?
Is that better?
Yeah, Jesus. Yes, that's better. Hello, good to have
Right.
you.
I am a professor at a university here in London, and I'd like to discuss this ridiculous topic with you.
The one on the table with Brian's current assertion in regards to the analemma. Feel free. Yeah, you keep disappearing. We didn't hear what you just said, whatever you just said.
Sorry, I'm having mic issues. Let me get that fixed. I'll be back.
No worries. Just let us know when you're ready. Apparently it's ridiculous, Brian, from what I've just heard.
Well, you see, this is the thing. I'd say he's just going to come at me with the same stuff as I've already heard.
Well, no, what I was going to say is that calling flat Earth is a whole ridiculous topic, or what we were just discussing is a ridiculous topic.
I opened his mic while he's in the middle of saying it, so I can only assume he's talking about Brian.
Well, you know, Brian's giving him a leg up. He's begging the question for him, so they might step into the ring with this one. You know.
True. We'll see.
It'll be interesting to see. Yep.
If he does get into the wrangle-dangle with Brian, everyone else, if you can hold your tongue.
He called the topic ridiculous, so I don't know if he was specifically talking about Brian's argument.
That's okay. That was the last thing on the table. I'm sure we can start with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's over way too quick when you ask for R. You got to play with your food.
Well, it's very likely about what I'm talking about, but who knows? Until he comes back, we won't know.
How you getting on, Andrew? You fixed your mic? You sounded great when it was working, by the way. Looks like we'll have to talk amongst ourselves. I think he'll just interject. Oh, there we go.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Is that better?
Yes, that seems much better,
Great.
unless you
Perfect.
disappear again.
Great.
So, were you referencing
Okay.
specifically the topic that was on the table that Brian was discussing?
I was not. No, I haven't. I've just joined, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Did you want to tackle it, or I assume if you don't know,
Do
you
you
don't?
want to tell me what you are discussing? Then we can. I wanted to debate flat Earth, but I mean, if you're discussing something else as ridiculous, then we can go there.
Okay, can you drop the, tendency to be quite derogatory to everybody here? Is that a possibility? Fleric, please pop yourself on mute.
Not being derogatory. How was I being derogatory? I'm sorry if I'm offending you, sir, but that was not my intention.
Well, we'll see how we get on. So, you're obviously a sphere believer, right?
I believe in the heliocentric model. Yes, correct.
Okay, that needs a measurement for an R value. Do you know what the R value is, first of all?
The radius of the Earth, you mean?
That's right. Where'd you get the measurement for a radius for Earth?
Where do we get it? I mean, well, the Earth has been measured. We have that radius.
Oh, we can all go home then.
Well, yeah, you can.
All right, where'd you get
You're
it?
choosing to stay here on your own.
Maybe, where'd you
The
get
radius
it?
of the Earth
Maybe you
is
didn't understand the
6,000
question.
kilometers.
You're a professor, right? You're only good at listening.
Indeed.
Right.
Yeah.
Where did you get that measurement? Not we've got it. Where did you get it? Do you understand the difference between what you answered and what I asked?
We carried out experiments.
Experiments?
To measure the Earth.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, really? What's an experiment?
What? What do you mean?
Define experiment.
Well, define experiment. How is that relevant to the question?
Because you said you'd done experiments.
Well, we measured the Earth. That's
You said you'd done experiments. How is it relevant? You said the word. How is it relevant? You used it. Why say it if it's not relevant? If you're saying that word's not relevant and the definition of the word you use to claim you've got a measured R value isn't relevant, why did you use it?
You've lost me, sir.
You used, I'll speak slower, Professor, clearly, struggling to understand simple English. You used the word experiment. So I, as your opponent, asked you to define the word you used.
Okay,
your
sure.
response, I'm talking slower, because you didn't understand the first time,
Well,
Professor. So shut up, Professor. Maybe you're not used to people telling you to shut up when you don't comprehend being asked to define a word you've used. You used it, define it. If you don't see the relevance in defining words you've used, don't use them. Clear?
An experiment, sir, is a procedure carried out to support or refute a hypothesis.
Oh,
That's
excellent.
what
What's
you're
a
getting
what's
at.
a hypothesis?
Well, experiments provide insight into cause and effect
Not what I
by
asked.
demonstrating
It's not what I
what
asked.
outcome
It's not what I
occurs when a
asked. You seem to be
particular
struggling with
factor is
listening again there,
manipulated.
Professor. What's a hypothesis?
Why are we... I'm here to discuss... the
Why are we
shape of
doing
the
it?
Earth.
Because you've used the words. Do we have to go through this a second time? Comprehension, not your strong suit. So you used the
hypothesis
word.
is a proposed
You
explanation for a
used
phenomena.
the word. Now I'm asking you, what do you think the word you used means? I.e., that's called defining it. So you've used the word hypothesis as an explanation for the experiment. You struggle to understand why I'd want it defining. And you've used that word now, so I want you to define what you think a hypothesis is, so we can establish whether or not, Professor, we've got the prerequisite things needed to be a hypothesis when you give us the R value at the end of what you're claiming. Is that clear?
Okay.
Or should I slow that down as well? I haven't
No,
finished.
that's fine,
Haven't finished. Clearly
Well,
not
you just asked me a
clearly
question,
not
so-
used to being told. I'm telling you how you're going to define what you've claimed, and I'm having to slow down because you repeatedly ask me to explain why we'd want the words you use defining. We do. The word on the table you used was hypothesis, Professor. Could you define it? Go ahead.
Yep. Hypothesis is a proposed explanation for a phenomena that we can observe.
Oh, really? What's a phenomena?
What's a phenomena? You don't know.
Yeah, you're going to ask me every single time when I ask you something. You're going to repeat it to buy yourself a little time. I think you're lying about being a professor, because if you were, you'd know instantaneously how to define a phenomenon.
I do know how to define it.
So do it.
See the relevant.
Because you've used the word. It's back to you not understanding the significance of the words you've used, you fucking clown.
Or fact or event. Phenomena is an observable fact or event.
Observable fact or event?
Yes.
That's a concrete noun.
Sorry?
Concrete noun. Define that.
A concrete noun? You asked me what is a phenomena, and
It's something happening.
You can't.
Something happening. You don't realise that that's something occurring.
Mm-hmm. The shape of the earth, the radius.
That's something happening, is it?
Yes, we have a radius.
Sorry, that's not a phenomena, Professor. You don't know what a phenomena is.
The earth itself is a phenomena.
You're an idiot. That's a concrete noun.
Well, you're the one who believes the earth is.
Yo, stupid idiot lying about being a professor. That's not a phenomena. You don't know what a phenomena is. Look it up so you can realise how wrong you are.
A phenomenon is an observable fact.
Stuttering bitch that's lying about being a professor. You are describing concrete nouns. That's not a phenomena. You're not going to get R from this. You're an idiot.
Google it.
Sorry, you're telling me to Google your claim I know what a phenomena is. It's something happening.
Can we move on to the...
Sorry, move on, stuttering, lying twat. No, we can't move on. You're lying. You're not a professor.
I am a professor, and that's not relevant. Whether
You are not. You are a liar.
The earth is not flat.
Sorry, don't tell me what the earth is when I'm clearly calling you out on your lie about being a professor.
Question, Nathan.
Sorry, don't rumpus me. You are lying about being a professor. You are not. You are a liar.
I'm not lying. Do you want me to prove it?
Sorry, a professor would know what a phenomenon was. They wouldn't describe it as a concrete noun. You're a liar.
Accept the answer. You're wrong.
Sorry, I'm not asking about the answer. I'm challenging your credentials based on the fact that it's blatantly obvious to every single person watching that you're lying.
So I'm here to debate the shape of the earth, and you want to attack me for my credentials.
Yeah, because you said you could get R from an experiment. That would require a phenomena.
Fallacy.
Sorry, you said you could get R from an experiment. That would require a phenomena by your own words.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, that would require something happening then, wouldn't it? But you don't understand what a phenomena is, and are a liar about being a professor, because you'd definitely understand what a phenomena was if you were. You're not. You're a liar.
That's great.
It's not great. It's you just being called out on coming here because you're a faceless twat, thinking that you can lie about being a professor, when it's blatantly obvious to everybody on both sides of the argument, watching and listening, that you haven't got the slightest clue about science. Clearly.
I'm lying. You're right.
Sorry, you don't know what a phenomena is. And you think that you can acquire one by way of experiment for R. Name the experiment. That would be the independent variable, dependent variable, hypothesis, actualization that gave you R. Name the experiment.
You're going to let me talk?
Did you understand the question? Name the experiment you claimed gave you R. Cat got your tongue, retard, liar about being a professor? Cat got your tongue? Can't name the experiment, Professor?
No, I can. I just don't know when I'm allowed to speak. Because
What? When you're asking me about when you can speak, you could have been giving me the name of the bullshit lie that you made up about having an experiment to get a mathematical derived value. That's R. You're a liar. You're being called out for being a clown who's way over his head. Do you think just chanting through me, calling you out on your lies and clear deceit?
No, I'm giving you the answer you asked for.
No, mate. You're not going to get an experiment for R. There isn't one. We all know that.
There is.
What's it called?
Eratosthenes.
What's the name of the experiment?
Have you heard of Eratosthenes?
That's not an experiment.
Mathematician?
It's not an experiment.
He performed the
It's
experiment.
not an experiment. He assumed R.
Yeah, so we
So he assumed R, you stupid clown. Sticks and shadows. He assumed R before he did that. You are completely idiotic. You've come here with a rudimentary understanding of your globe faith, and you think that you're going to tell us that that's an experiment. What was the dependent variable for this? This is idiotic. You're an idiot.
We need to assume.
Sorry, don't eat your mic just because you're being humiliated for your lies and rudimentary understanding of the thing you're claiming. Don't eat your mic.
Do you not understand?
Don't ad hom me either and tell me about what I don't understand. You don't understand what a phenomena is. You also think that sticks and shadows is an experiment. No naturally occurring phenomena, no independent variable, definitely not an experiment. You are a clown and a liar. It's not an experiment.
We need to assume R.
Sorry, it's not an experiment. You are an idiot.
R is... Oh my god, this guy is so dumb.
Sorry, kick this guy out. He's a useless idiot liar. Did you think you did well, Andrew? Did you think you did well, Professor Liar? Andrew C?
Damp cloth.
Excuse me. Did you think you did well? Did you think you'd come in and tell us that Sticks and Shadows gave you an hour measurement? Is that what you thought you did well?
You're not allowing me to speak, Nathan.
You're chanting straight through the middle while I ask you if you think you did well. I asked you questions and you gave me answers. You think that Sticks and Shadows is an experiment and it's got a phenomena, a naturally occurring event that you can study with scientific experimentation. You're wrong and an idiot. And you're moaning about not getting a chance to speak while I point out how thick you are for a live audience.
Would you like to suck my balls?
Every time Nathan asks you a question, you start asking him questions back. When he starts talking,
I'm answering him. He's not letting me speak.
No, every time he talks, you start giving him the answer to the question instead of answering when he asks you the question.
Okay, well, I answered him.
You're a stutterer. You've been reduced to a stuttering bitch. Do you not understand what's happened? You've come in telling us we've got stupid ideas, and you've got a fundamental, rudimentary understanding of basics. That's it. But you're coming here telling us you're a professor.
I am.
No, you're not. You do not realise that we've all figured out, and it's glaringly obvious to anybody with even the slightest education that you are not a professor. You think you're still going to roll with that lie? That pause and sigh is him realising how fucking dishonest he is and that we've called him on it. A real professor would be outraged, would instantaneously tell me how wrong I was. They wouldn't sigh and groan. We know you are lying.
I can't be outraged because you...
Sorry, you are lying, though. We know you are. Did you think you'd come here and tell us you're a professor and get away with claiming Sticks and Shadows as an experiment? Wow, how pathetic. You want to elevate yourself to professor to make this shit claim? Is that what you need, you pathetic worm? To give yourself credits that you don't have to make a claim here? Build yourself up to be a professor in order to face the scary flat earthers? Got to give yourself false credit you haven't got. How pathetic.
Can we discuss the topic at hand instead of...
What, you being pathetic and a liar? That's the topic at hand. You've come in and claimed you're a professor. It's absolutely pathetic. There's that sigh again. Again, anybody who actually had the accreditation would be outraged. They wouldn't sigh. We know you're lying.
Outraged, Nathan.
I'm outraged that you come here and lied to me, right? You don't sound like a professor. You sound like an idiot.
I don't think a professor would tell you he's a professor straight off.
No.
I think he'd be more humble.
Right. I'd have some degree of modesty. This guy just balls out.
How does gravity work, Nathan?
Sorry, why are you talking through me? Me highlighting to a live audience how stupid you are. To come here and lie about your credits and then sigh when I call you on them. You don't get the question. You're being asked why you're being so pathetic to come here and lie about being a professor. It's absolutely pathetic. Hey, check it out. Globe Believers watching. This dude has come here and lied to us about his credits. Does that sound familiar, Professor Dave? Yeah, that's you.
What are you a professor in?
Science.
He said with his crap mic that doesn't work, the professor who can't even figure out how to get a mic working, said with his broken now mic that he was a professor of science.
Wait.
That's a joke.
You can't become a PhD in science.
Tell him to go through the scientific method.
No, there's no such thing, Neil. You're not.
Oh, no?
Just to
you can
abuse
be,
me.
you can be called a scientist, but you don't get a PhD in science. You get a PhD
Well, maybe
in biochemistry or something.
Maybe he's a religious professor. You know, he professes his religion, is what he meant.
Scientologist.
How does gravity work?
Why are you asking
Well,
us
you're
something?
a
We've
professor,
called
you
you out
should
for
know.
being a liar. You think you're going to carry on? This guy's like a cum virus. He's just
What is
respawned. Oh, yeah, what, you saw through my disguise as a professor when you shot me in the face? I'll just respawn as Catwoman. Why are you asking us questions? We've called you out for being a fragrant liar. What's the deal? Do you think you've got the nerve to ask us stuff? You've had to come here and lie about what you've got credits on.
I'm not lying.
Because you haven't got them. That's clearly obvious to every single person watching on both sides.
What are your credentials?
Sorry,
Nate?
nobody gives a crap. I'm not claiming to be a professor. You are, you dumb shit.
This is comical.
So you come here and lie about being a professor, and when I call you on it and you start sighing because you've blatantly been called out because of your lack of knowledge on science, yeah? Me, I'm not a professor, but I can easily call out you for not being one because I do actually understand what this stuff means. You don't. When asked for R, you told me you got an experiment. That's absurd. It's clear that you're not a professor, but yet you still think you've got the right to ask us something. Because in your mind, you think that by comparison to us, you're a professor. That's what you think. Oh, we're just so far below you. You've made it clear with your opening statement. This stupid idea. Clearly, I am way levitated above this nonsense of flat Earth. I am superior. So much so, I'm going to designate myself a fucking professor.
Right, I'm not debating this anymore. You're either one of
So go fuck yourself, you stupid lying retard. Leave then, liar.
You leave.
Yeah, no one asked
Sorry,
you to come
I
in.
run this show. Are you having a laugh?
You having a laugh?
Sorry, that is not the behaviour of Professor accredited, right? That's the behaviour of a lying twat. Somebody kick him out.
Look, are we?
Don't tell me to look. We're telling you to get lost, liar.
Kick the prick.
You don't understand what's going on? The audience is acutely aware of how the globe believer currently on the panel has had to lie through his back teeth. You're listening, Professor Dave. Yeah?
Professor Dave.
The guy who also calls himself a professor like you have and lies when he's not. It's rife amongst you idiots who fight against us to just decide that you've got this lofty accreditation you haven't. You do it and so does Professor Dave, who's not a professor. Hello? Can't see? Maybe you don't comprehend why I'd be bringing this up, right?
Nathan, how did we...
Say my name, bitch. You don't comprehend why I'd compare you to Professor who's not a Professor Dave? You've claimed to be a professor. Stupid idiot globe believers.
Whatever, Nathan.
Whatever? You come to a flat earth debate and lie about your credits, and then it's whatever.
Prove that I'm lying.
It's already been proven beyond anybody who's in the audience's understanding. We already know you're lying, but what you think because we haven't got you to not show a certificate you're going to claim you've got, that you still got some shred of credibility in this. You are delusional. Everybody knows you're lying. Everybody. There are no exceptions. Nobody, literally, not one person in the audience thinks you're a professor. Not one.
I can see that there is one person in the audience.
Oh, wow, there's one completely delusional dick like you who believes you.
If you are a professor, then that's a lot worse.
Can we
That's a
discuss
much
the
worse
shape of the
situation.
Earth, Nathan?
This is
No!
all we got.
No, if you were a professor, yeah, I'd give you respect and let you make your claims. That you've got an experiment for R? You got shot in the face! Hello? Are you people really this retarded? Yeah? He came in and claimed he'd got an experiment for R.
How does
Yeah, Daniel, they came up with
how
one
does
year
a
as well.
vacuum work then, Nathan?
Dumbo, you haven't got anything. You've got nothing.
Positive claim about being a professor You need to show some credentials.
No, I don't need to prove myself, mate.
He's just
You don't
wasting our
need to
time.
because we
He's a
already know you're
professor in
lying.
science.
Prove it. What do you mean? I'm not asking you to prove it anymore. I know beyond all certitude you've lied.
I'm here to discuss the shape of the Earth.
You're here to lie about your credentials. You've already got zero credibility.
Why did you even bring up your credentials?
To let you know where you stand.
Oh, right. So we felt threatened by your superiority as a professor. Yeah, I've already laid that out. I know that. I laid it out.
Well, why are you asking then?
Because we want to know the mentality of the globe-believing retards like yourself and Professor Dave, who think that because they're dealing with flat earthers, suddenly they've got to elevate themselves to an educated position beyond their stature to make the argument.
Don't forget Professor
This is
Phil.
my first time on the show, Nathan. I'm sorry if we...
Nobody cares. Nobody's asking you about how many times you've been on. We're asking what gives you the inclination to lie about being a professor.
Can we start over? Because...
Oh, what, you want to do over? Yeah, that would be also detailed when I described you being like a virus. Having been shot in the face, he's now literally verbalised it as I want to do over. Yeah, that would be you respawning. Me, I've already detailed this.
If you've already proven that you're a liar, why would we want to talk to you?
I'm not a liar. You think I'm a liar.
We know you are a liar. We know. Yeah, you're still under the misapprehension that we're all dumbos. Yeah, they'll never know that I'm not a prof. Yeah, they're all dumb. Yeah, we know. Hello? You're gonna carry on this lie? I cannot quite believe this is happening. You're gonna carry on claiming to be a professor?
I admit I lied.
Yeah, we fucking know you lied.
We move on.
No! Everybody watching, yeah?
Now,
We know you're liars. And so does the audience. Yeah? The fact that this guy's actually admitted to how he's come to a flat earth debate with his globe belief and had to lie about his credentials to do so. Are we that scary?
I'm not lying.
Sorry, you lied about being a professor. You just admitted to it 2 seconds ago.
I admitted so that we could move on. I'm not lying. I am a professor. I'm a professor of physics and astronomy.
pick this guy out. He's a waste of time.
Yeah, it's just a total wanker. Literally,
I
he's
think
going to carry on his lie.
Nathan, I think what we were talking about before he came in, I think maybe he came in to disrupt that.
I say if we discuss the topic at hand and leave my credentials alone, it'll be a lot more productive.
You don't have any credentials, lad. You threw them out the window.
I've got GCSEs, A levels, and a HND. So
you told me you were a professor in science. You're the first ever professor in science in history. There's no such thing as a professor in science. You can be a professor in biochemistry, a professor in astronomy, whatever. You can't be a professor in science.
Ryan, they think we're dumb. They think
I
we're
know.
idiots. They could just
He's
say
going back.
anything.
He's going back on his professor claim now. It's ridiculous, man. You're a lawyer. Everyone knows you're a lawyer. We don't want to talk to you. What more do you want?
Nathan, have you ever sucked black dick?
Outrageous.
Kick him out. I told you.
That's what they want to do. Lie and just talk filth. Yeah? When I do it, it's because it's a metaphor. If you get your head shot off in a video game and then need a do-over like you did, yeah? The people who humiliate the people who are bragging about being a professor in the game first have the opponent crouching on their face. It's called teabagging. It's a video game analogy. So asking me if I suck black dick, that's just crude. It's not an analogy. It's not me showing how I'm exercising my victory like a video gamer would by teabagging your dumbass. You're just being filthy after lying and being crude. This is what you got, Globers. This is what you've got to represent your faith. He represents you like Virus the Liar represents you. This is what you've got. Total scum. Scum of the earth. Liars who fight for the globe.
It's also extremely racist to just say, black dick. Like, why does the color of the dick matter?
Yeah, I'm 14% black. What's that got to do with anything?
You don't have to keep repeating it, though. Come on. Kick the asshole out.
Well, I think he's got what he wanted, which was a diversion. He caused a diversion on the show. But he did show that they are willing to, that there's people on our opposition side that are absolutely willing to lie publicly.
He had no response to you saying Eratosthenes worked everything on the basis of assumptions.
Yeah, he got into the wrangle dangle and wanted to ask me why you'd need to assume R. It's like, well, this is claimed to be an experiment. Oh my god.
He had no measurements. He had only calculations with math based on Eratosthenes' assumptions that the sun's rays are at such an infinite distance that light comes to Earth parallel, which is easily debunked by divergent rays that everyone could see. It to me is ridiculous. You caught him early. Good job.
With that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. As I say, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. But a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you tuned in, smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Black Swan John, I like that.
Well, yeah, measurements are of what is. You know, you measure what is. They're concrete nouns. You can measure those. The horizon, though, you know, it's not Earth curve. The Black Swan demonstrates that. So the only measurements we have are the plane that we dwell on.
Well, you'd have to go through the process of how would you actually, let's just say you believed it was a globe. How would you go about measuring the radius of that globe? Because you'd have to find the radius of the globe to find out the diameter and circumference of it. So how would you go about doing this?
With the tangent to the horizon?
I would go to the diameter first, actually.
Right, you'd have to, but you'd have to pre-assume that the horizon is geometric. You would have to do that, wouldn't you?
It would have to be. No, it wouldn't. Not, it would have to be if you lived on a sphere.
Yeah, it would have to be. But if you believed you lived on a sphere, then the horizon, like for that to be true, the horizon has to be geometric, right? So now, how you need to find out, if you want to find out the size of the sphere, you have to find out, right, what its radius is, right? So the radius is the distance from the outside of the sphere to the dead center of that sphere. So how do you find out that distance to the center?
Well, if you're standing on it, you'd have to figure out the circumference. So you have to measure a length that loops in on itself.
You can't know a circumference without a radius. Radius comes.
No, you can.
How do you measure a circumference without a
radius and the diameter from that? If we're standing on it, right? If you have a smaller sphere you can hold in your hand, then yeah, oh, look at the diameter. You can derive the radius from that and calculate the circumference. But if you're standing on it, that's a different situation altogether.
It should be a simple operation of the Pythagorean theorem.
Yeah, but
if you stood on a sphere, well, it's because you don't stand on a sphere. That's why it's not.
Yeah, but even if it were, you know, let's just get really as far presuppositional as humanly possible. What if the Earth was a sphere and terrestrial refraction was real?
Hang on, don't go to terrestrial
No.
refraction.
Hold
No,
on,
this
no.
is not like an interruption time. I'm in the middle of making the statement, right?
Yeah,
So what if both were real?
I was in the middle of making a point too, and it's along the lines of what you were saying. I was saying if it was a sphere, how would we find out the radius? Because you need the radius to find out anything else to do with the size. You need the radius to find out the diameter, to find out the circumference. You need this. So how would you find out the distance from the surface to the center? If you knew it was a sphere, how would you do that?
Well, if terrestrial refraction was out there, which makes it impossible for you to. Can I think? I can't respond. Okay. You know how much you like being interrupted?
Into it. Why are you bringing refraction into it? We're talking about finding out.
Yeah, that's right. So how would they find out?
Work with me, right? What would the process be?
I'm trying to explain to you, but like after 1 second of me trying to explain it, you start talking over it. So
only because you're talking about refraction.
Yeah. Well, that's part of this question. Because if the Earth was a sphere, then it would have to have terrestrial refraction or black swan.
No. We have terrestrial refraction because we're told we live on a globe when we don't. I'm talking about if you actually lived on a globe, then you would have to have a geometric measurement of the radius. Right? How would you go about that? Would it be a dip angle to the horizon?
It would have to be to get the radius.
If there was no terrestrial refraction, yes.
Yeah, but terrestrial refraction is only thrown in there because we see everything. We don't see a curve. We don't experience curve. We experience flat, and that's why terrestrial refraction is thrown in there.
Right. Well, so why couldn't it exist? If the Earth was a sphere, which it isn't, then why couldn't terrestrial refraction exist? I mean, yes, it has a radius value you could never measure. I'm not done yet. It could have a radius value you could never measure because of it. But what if it really was a sphere after all? How would you ever establish the radius value, even though it is inherent to the terrestrial refraction, which could not be figured out perfectly, right? That only works because it's a machination. That's how they established the R value, presuppose it, put it in there. But what if terrestrial refraction was actually real and the Earth was actually a sphere? Then how could they arrive to the formula? They would have to have the circumference, because you can still walk on the Earth. And that's the only thing you can do. You can't size it up by looking at it because of terrestrial refraction. It's not where it's supposed to be. So then there's only one recourse left, and that is actually physically walk over a length and come to a circle.
What are you talking about?
Are
you forgetting the black swan?
No.
Terrestrial refraction.
Black swan doesn't exist in this conception.
Oh, so you're in the conception. You're not following Brian on measurements. You're on calculations.
No, we were presupposing what if the Earth was a sphere. That's what we were talking about, both of us.
No, I was trying to go somewhere with my original point, and you started bringing terrestrial refraction into it, something I didn't mention at all.
Terrestrial refraction is just used.
Terrestrial refraction is only the only reason that exists. It doesn't exist in reality. The reason that exists at all as a claim is because they needed it because we don't experience a curved Earth. So they needed to tell us it was a globe, but because of refraction, it always looks flat. That's why we have terrestrial refraction.
And everything prior to the black swan was supposed to be moved with respect to the horizon. That's why the R value's in that is with respect to the horizon.
That's right. But what if it was an effect that they hadn't calculated because they could not figure out how much it was because they couldn't figure out the radius value because of the existence of it?
My original point. Go on, John. I'll go after you.
Well, what I was going to say is terrestrial refraction was meant to move things with respect to the horizon. Now, you can't move the horizon with terrestrial refraction, else you lose R.
What?
My original point, right, where I was trying to go with it is, if you knew it was a globe and all you needed to do was find out the actual radius to find out the diameter and the circumference, to find out the dimensions, the size of it, what would you do? Would you do the Al-Biruni method? If the horizon was geometric, would that be the best method to find the radius of the globe, you're wrong.
It depends on the available options.
Right. Okay. So you take the best option and you do it, right? Wouldn't you? You take the best
Depends on
option.
the
and you do it.
available options. If you can't travel anywhere, then yes, you would probably end up trying to
how are you
measure the
supposed to
horizon.
travel
But
around
if
an
you did
equator?
have the ability to
do you
travel,
even know
then you
what the
could
equa-
try figuring out the circumference first.
You have to find out a radius to find out the dimension.
No.
You need a radius.
No?
You can't. How are you supposed to? Right, how do you measure walking around on an ocean?
Use a boat.
Aaron, that's not going to work.
How do you know? Did you try it? When I
Come on,
want to
Can I
figure
go back
out
to my original point,
when I
please?
want to figure out what
Complete nonsense.
no, it's not
Is that
nonsense.
so,
It's another
Brian?
approach of the same geometry, right? You don't have to start with the radius. This is nonsense. The radius is what you end up with. And either
I
you
finish
take the
my point,
diameter of the sphere, then you half it, you have the radius, or you actually measure the entire circumference, which you can physically do with a measuring tape or walking around it, and then you calculate it from that. You can't measure the radius. You can't literally measure it because you can't get inside of the sphere.
A measuring
You understand?
tape
So,
there is all,
can I-
really.
Finish my point, Arwen, please. My point
No,
is,
not please. No. Everything I'm saying is solid.
it's not.
It is.
No.
All right, let Brian talk now, and we'll come back to your conceptual ideas.
We
later.
will, yeah. We'll come right back to that. Don't worry. My point being is if you knew it was a globe, and let's just say the Alberuni method was the best method you could find to measure a radius, then you would do that. You would measure that radius with that method if you knew it was a globe, right? But if you have to just pre-assume that it's a globe, then your measurement means absolutely nothing. If the best you can do is pre-assume it,
Well,
you don't have a
technically-
measurement. You don't have anything.
Technically, when looking at the horizon, you're not measuring the radius. You're measuring curve and then calculating from that
you're
the radius.
deriving the radius from it, whatever.
That's right.
The point I'm making is you're getting a radius measurement.
No, you're not. You're getting a radius calculation based on a curve measurement.
The leg of a triangle. You're getting the leg of a triangle if you assume you're on a sphere.
Just splitting hairs now with every little thing. Do I have to speak super specific, Arwen? Because if you want, I will. Do I have to be super specific about
I'm sorry, I'm just being accurate
I will
here.
be super specific, right? You will use a dip angle to the horizon. The horizon will be geometric. That will be the start of your deriving of an R value.
Yes, correct.
Right. So what is my question again, Arwen? Why did I say what I said?
Which part?
Exactly. You don't even know what I'm talking about.
Well, not anymore.
Yeah, well, I made it very clear a couple of minutes ago what I was saying. I said it very clearly that if the best you can do is just pre-assume that it's a globe, then your supposed radius deriving, right, whatever way you want to split hairs about it, your supposed radius deriving means absolutely nothing if the best you've got is pre-assumption. So you don't have anything. Unless you know it's a globe, then you can know for definite that there's the radius. But you can't claim a radius on a pre-assumption. Pre-assuming
You're
it's a globe.
absolutely,
But it's a globe.
you're absolutely right, Brian, because every cursory research I've done on Eratosthenes says he pre-assumed the globe. He also pre-assumes the sun was a far distance and light rays were coming parallel. Everything is based on the presupposition. You're absolutely right.
Right.
Exactly, Tainted. The same with Alberuni.
He calculated the radius based on the presupposition of a sphere and how the sun angles would point out in that setup the curve, the radius, effectively. Yes, it is based on a presupposition for sure. They can never overcome this. But there are other approaches. You don't like looking at the horizon and calculating it from that is not the only way. But there are natural consequences for the claim of standing on a sphere, of which that specifically will be a part. That's the difference.
Like
No,
what?
the natural consequences is that the sun is moving, and when it's at an angle, it casts a shadow. It's not because the earth is curved that casts a shadow. And sunlight does not come in parallel. That's easy to prove. So you're off again.
No. That's not. No, I'm not evolving the celestials like that. It's just that if you are standing on the sphere, there will be geometric consequences when you look at the horizon. But that's after it's already been assumed or proven, right?
Right. So
How
how
you get to the original radial situation that it is curved, you have to go a distance, or you have to measure the actual horizon as geometric.
All right. All right. So you're in the middle of the ocean, no land, just the water. You pull out your navigation device called the sextant. You sight 3 stars. One has a circle of equal altitude of 3,000 miles. The other one has one of 1,500 miles. The other one has one of 6,000 miles. They cross over at one point. That's your fix. That's triangulating. Did you do that with a flat baseline or a curved?
It's terrestrially refracted, so
Yeah,
it seems
sorry.
straight.
Bye, Arvin.
Yeah.
Yeah, you use the stars in
Well, hey,
Oh,
don't
shit.
talk to me like I'm a
That's
fucking
exactly-
baller, okay? I'm gonna use that
just
word
accept
because
defeat.
I'm getting frustrated here.
Hold on, everyone.
Don't
Hello.
Don't
Hello.
talk to me like I'm a baller.
Yep, well, you are being a baller for them now. It's just a bit of
No.
fun. Just accept the consequences at the end.
If you're going to act like one.
No, I'm not taking it easy. I'm not taking it easy. Don't talk to me like I'm a baller. I'm working on the mechanics here. I'm getting
Everyone,
real. Don't
everyone
talk
calm
to
down a
me
second.
like I'm a baller.
Everyone take a breath. I don't want Armin to just disappear. No need. If he's getting pissed off, let's just leave off him.
Well, grow up. If you're going to
Well,
act
Alvin
like
made a
one.
claim.
No,
then
you
take it
grow
like
up.
one.
Just a matter of not
You
the
grow
why,
up.
just like
Alvin
why.
made a claim.
No, I
I'm
didn't
gonna-
make a
hang on,
claim.
Hang on. This is so simple, Arwen. If you're going to act like one, then take it like one. We know you're not one.
I made a freaking joke, dude. Can't you even appreciate me saying
thought that
it's
was my line.
terrestrially refracted straight in reply to your question? Or did you forget you got Arwin in front of you and not a random baller? Seriously.
You made a claim
You're taking your role too
measuring the
seriously.
Hold on, let's
circumference.
just. I want it to be concisely rounded out. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, Alwyn said that if we knew we were on a globe, that you could measure the circumference of the globe and you wouldn't need to measure the radius and diameter first. And he said you could measure it by going around the circumference. How would you do that, Alwyn?
Move a lot of distances, end up at the same locations, and then, you just size it up, you square it down. You map it. You literally map it, everything.
Can I give the real
And
answer?
if you end up on the globe, well, then you could derive the radius because you can't measure the radius. Nobody can measure the radius.
Right, can I just...
Because you have to
can I
go
just give the
inside
real
of the
answer?
sphere. You
Can I just
can't
give the
measure it,
real
you can
answer?
only calculate.
So what I've been saying is, when you measure this circumference, it was the same thing that I think Virus did yesterday. You've got to presuppose that you're on a ball to begin with. That is to say that when you're measuring that circumference, you assume that you're moving around the outside edge of a sphere. Yeah? Therefore, that circle, when you're moving around the outside edge, is actually the same as the obvious radius that the sphere, because you're moving around the outside edge of it when you measure the circumference. Right, Arwin?
No, that's not what I'm saying. But that is what ballers probably would think about it. No, you would just move in a grid. You move in a grid, you're not assuming anything. But if you then keep ending up in the same locations, if you keep moving in a grid in all directions, eventually you will figure out what the layout is in relation
You can't
to
use a
every
grid on a
other
sphere.
part of the layout. Now I'm done.
You can't use a grid on a sphere.
What?
You can't use
Don't
a
you know
grid on
about
a
spherical
sphere.
triangles?
No, I'm not. I'm talking about grid measuring. You move in squares, like grid paper. You move
Can't do it on a
everywhere,
sphere.
everywhere in the realm. And then eventually, if you keep ending up in the same place and not like against some kind of barrier or something, then put it all together. And then you can just figure out like a puzzle, what is this?
Arwen, are you not listening to Brian? Why do you think they work on flat maps with grids and not on spheres? Say it again.
I'm
Brian.
not talking
You
about
can't use
that.
a grid on a sphere. Doesn't work. You can't keep the dimensions of the grid.
Well, there you go. That's proof then.
There you go.
If
That's
you're
exactly Owen's point.
No. If you're going to go on grid measuring and it keeps on like, oh look, it doesn't fit. Well, guess what? What would be the conclusion from that?
Yeah, but you
Grids
don't know
don't
how
fit.
far. Yeah, but that you'd say
Yeah.
circumference. That would be 360 degrees around. That would be
Yeah.
circumference. So where are you going with this grid claim, like an amorphing grid? What you mean? There you go. That's what you said. There you go.
This
There-
is
what
not
do you mean, there you
this
go?
is not about the real world. Again, I hope I don't have to remind everybody again that we're talking about what would you do if the world was literally a globe. That means it's a globe now. In this argument, the Earth is a globe. How would you measure that? How? Right? Well, I'd go on grid measuring, and then if the grid doesn't match up, well, you could draw geometric conclusions from that. You see?
But that won't give you a
That's how I-
circumference.
Just keep on grid measuring. Eventually, you will get a complete
that.
picture. You will not be able to go anywhere new.
Yeah, we heard that.
You won't.
So
Darwin.
you're back on your
What do
disco
you
ball
use
with the
as
little square
bearings?
mirrors.
That's a good question. Ask again. Was that Rams or George? Who was it that said something
Yeah,
from
what
Discord?
do you use as bearings?
Bearings? Probably magnetics, I'd have to guess.
Oh, see, that's where you might get tricked.
They're square grids, are they?
What?
Did you going to
I
use?
think I understand the question wrong. What?
Saying you're using square grids, and then for your
Yeah.
bearing, you're using magnetic lines, right? So, do they fit onto the square grids that you're describing, or not?
Right. Yeah. You'd have like the magnetic direction as an anchor point, and then you just put the grids together.
Yeah.
Like a
Do
puzzle.
they fit onto
But
the grids? He's not really answering.
It
Magnetic-
would overlay that.
Is that a
magnetic
yes?
direction changes.
How if you're on a ball?
Dude, I'm not a cartographer, okay? I'm improvising here. I'm just trying to figure out how would I try to size it up if the Earth was actually a sphere. And
May
yeah,
I
that's
interject?
how I would try it.
Can I join
just
in
wanna
the
interject something.
conversation, or am I still banned?
Technically, wouldn't you be able to go to the North and the South Pole at, say, 88, 89 degrees, put a marker in the ground, and then follow your compass westward until you return to that marker? And if the same thing happens at the North and the South, and the distance traveled is similar or the same, then I guess that would be a way to prove it, wouldn't it? Would it?
Hi guys, can
Well,
I
It
join
would
in the
contribute
conversation
to the
or
grid.
not?
Yeah.
You'd have to.
Can you
make
guys
sure
hear me?
you're going in a straight
Andrew,
line.
Shut that
hold on,
guy
Brian.
up.
Hold on, Brian. Do you think joining in with the conversation is disrupting the conversation, asking twice if you can join in? Have you got anything to add?
Sorry, I
Add it.
just want to see if you hear me or not. I'll go on mute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got caught lying already, so you're not welcome back.
Disgusting mouth.
10th man cut through the terrestrial refraction argument, and I think that got glossed over because he pointed out the sextant. You can't just say terrestrial refraction to it because you're using celestial objects in this.
Yeah, but we were talking about geometric measurements, weren't we? Like that. My whole point was at the start. This is what's got this whole thing started originally. Is that if you knew it was a globe, what would you do if it was definitely a globe, you just didn't know how big? What would you do to gain the radius, right? Then you'd have a task of gaining a radius. That would be a difficult task to gain an actual proper radius that you could depend upon to go further, let's just say, right? And get a diameter and a circumference. But if you
What
have
about
to
if you did what
pre-assume,
I suggested and went to the north and south poles at 89 or 88 degrees and put a marker in the ground and then move west until you return to that marker and measure the distance that you've traveled and then make your calculations from that?
We already have the radius
but-
of the Earth, 6,300
No,
kilometers.
Get out of here.
yeah, go away you. Yeah, no, but the problem is, Rams, how do you know what 89
when
degrees
he
are?
said-
You don't even know how big. You don't even know your radius. This is the thing. I thought about starting off with, okay, it's definitely a globe, but could you ever even say at that point it's definitely a globe? You could say it's not flat. But the thing about it is if you have, my point being originally, sorry, is if you have to just pre-assume it's a globe, then you got nothing. Because even if you knew for definite it was a globe, then you'd still have a major task to actually come up with a radius, considering how big it would be. But
Well,
if you
all
have
of
to
this is
pre-assume it's
why
a globe,
this is out of the realm of science, right? This question.
Look, what's the basis for the black swan? What's the basis for the black swan? At a 1 foot observer height, okay, and a given radius of 3959. That's the basis of the black swan. We're going with their guess that the radius is 3959. Well, it doesn't work out well for them. And was it Mr. Sensible? At best, you've debunked the radius of the Earth. And so that makes our radius 40,000 miles instead of 3959. So if it changes because of weather on a daily basis, then what does that tell you? It's optical. The horizon has to be geometric for it to be a globe, and it would be not a hard thing to figure out if it's curved, because you would see curvature.
Yeah, it's just a difference in intonation when you phrase the black swan position, which is to say that if the Earth was a sphere, then you'd have a geometric horizon at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. And we don't. But we always focus on the fact that it's beyond the geometric limitations, therefore the Earth can't be a sphere, which is perfectly fine. But when you think about it in the other way, you go, well, yeah, we'd have to have that geometric limitation. It would be observably bloody obvious if we were on a sphere.
well, there's something that I call. Sorry, Neil, were you going to say something? Did I cut down on you? Obviously not. No,
that was me. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Aaron. There's something that I term as inducing the globe effect, and it's like begging the question, but there's some small nuances difference. Is that they always start with their cause, even like the likes of Albert Einstein. He started with a cause, and he left other people go find the effects to fit the cause. So they start with a cause, and then they have to manipulate reality and, let's say, basically hijack effects, whether it be perspective or anything else, to fit the cause. So the cause is it's a globe, and the effect is we will see an optical angle change to Polaris as we move away from it every 69 miles. We'll see an optical angle change of a degree. That's the effect. Whereas that is just the effect, but they started with the cause. So it's very similar to begging the question. It's just a kind of
It is begging the question. No, that is begging the question.
Yeah, but they have to induce the effect. It's inducing the globe effect. They have to start with their cause, which is always it's a globe. And then they have to do. Come on.
I was going to say, Kiwi tries to illustrate this when he talks about, I can't remember what he calls them, but something like gnomes, some crazy gnomes. And you just have the prerequisite that they exist, and then have the effect that's described in heliocentrism be the, as you call it, effect to the presupposed cause. So in your example, you got cause, globe, Earth, and then whatever the hell they like that they're going to assert as a result. You said Polaris, right? Well, the same thing can be inserted with these three-toed gnomes. That's the one. Cause, three-toed gnomes. Result, well, 1 degree change in in angle from Polaris. You can just affirm the consequent thereafter. But it is ultimately just begging the question. I assume a globe Earth, therefore, or let's change it from something else just to make the example easier. I assume gravity, therefore this light in the sky is an effect of that gravity that I assume. And if somebody challenges you, go, well, do you not see the light in the sky? Obviously, we've got our gravity, because if we didn't, we wouldn't have that effect. It's just begging the question.
Well, yeah, I mean, at that point, you have to say stuff like, there is absolutely no other way for us to see an optical angle change to Polaris other than it being a globe. You know, that's where you have to go after that.
Or three-tone gnomes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The entire premise starts with an assumption. That's why I think there's got to be some proactive effort being made to keep us all indoctrinated into globe faith, because you have to have the notion hardwired. The assumption of a sphere must be there first and foremost when anything comes up to do with globe, so that you already start, well, I'm on a globe, so how does this work? And then you can do that in debate when you come across somebody else. And naturally, if you're already under the prerequisite that you're on a globe, your arguments will naturally form into affirming the consequent form of logical fallacies after you beg the question, because you don't realise you've begged the question, even when it's pointed out to them that they've begged the question. So someone like Mick West admits that they asked to assume R. And they go, well, yeah, well, because we know we're on a sphere. In other words, they say, well, yeah, because I begged the question.
Nathan, can you go to Masterby and post Merriam-Webster's definition of assumed?
Just above Arwin's post about animal-human hybrids, that one.
No, sorry.
Okay, I got it up. Assume. Or
Yeah.
assumed.
Assumed, yeah. Not true or real, deliberately pretended or feigned, an assumed cheerfulness, an assumed air of indifference, false, fictitious, an assumed name, taken for granted, supposed, the assumed reason for his absence. You're going to tell me this is how they're going to prove the globe, starting off with this word or any variation of this word?
But you take it away, you get rid of the word. As I say, the indoctrination starts from birth, and then it's not assumed that you're on a sphere. It's known that you're on a sphere. So because I know I'm on a sphere, I will make the following assumptions that are based on my assumption. Isn't what they say. They just say, because I know I'm on a sphere, that's why when I move away from a star, I'm going to have 1 degree every 69 nautical miles. And you go, why? Well, because I'm assuming that that triangle that's actually the measurement that's being derived to get that claim actually starts at the centre of a sphere, because we live on a sphere, don't we? So, because they know. They don't read it as being an assumption. They read it as, well, I already know.
Yeah, but every search that you do for Eratosthenes that goes into detail, not little bylines about who he was, what he did, but the ones that go into it, I found out he assumed everything. He assumed the sun rays were coming in parallel because the sun was far, and he assumed that he lived on a sphere. He assumed everything before he went and did what he supposedly did, which we're not sure if it was even him. But the story falls apart because it's based on a falsehood, a fictitious thing. He never knew. He says, well, I live on a globe. How can I prove it? Well, the sun's got to be really, really far away. That's one way. The shadow has to be cast because the earth curved away 500 miles from Cyan in Alexandria. Oh, that's it. That's the way we're going to get it. Oh, I figured that's 1/50th of the circle of 360. So we're on Earth with a radius of 3959. And that gibberish is what these people believe.
Remember when you asked...
Eratosthenes. Sorry, Nick.
No,
He
you
didn't
go
have
first,
a
Brian.
sextant.
Go on. Was that George, then Brian?
No, he didn't have a sextant, because if he didn't have a sextant back then, he knew it was 12 noon on the other city, so he knew the GP of that star. If he was using a sextant, he would never affirm a curve or a sphere.
Right. Indeed. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, Eratosthenes, it's only claimed that he pre-assumed it was a globe and all this other stuff. It's much more likely that, because this is just a claim, because they want to bring their globe claim back to 2,000 years ago in Greece or wherever. But in reality, right, if you look what Eratosthenes did, he basically set up the starting of a diameter, basically, of the known world, right? That's basically what he did. And then that diameter was then turned into a polar circumference for a globe. And then they hijacked the optics to give them their equatorial. Well, they had to use the movement of the sun as well, like the path of the sun, to give them an equatorial circumference. So what Eratosthenes did is, if you take away that he pre-assumed the sun rays were parallel, then he just started laying out a flat diameter. What's more likely, that Eratosthenes pre-assumed that it was flat, or that he pre-assumed it was a globe? I think it's much more plausible that he just pre-assumed that it was flat because that's what he experienced. You know, that's what everyone experiences. That's why they have 7/6R, because we experience flat. You know, so this thing about Eratosthenes, it means absolutely nothing, because it's just a claim. All it is a claim from their side. There's a claim, and they even have to put in that he pre-assumed it was a globe and he pre-assumed parallel sun rays. They have to put that in there. You know,
that's a perfect segue. Perfect. That was what I was going to say, actually, Brian, when I let you and George go first. So, 10th asked a couple of months ago, what will 2022 be? 2020, Year of the Black Swan. 2021, Year of the Sextant. 2022, Year of the Sun. Because their presupposition requires the sun to do something that it observably and obviously does not do. And that is give you parallel light rays. For all of their Muppet Vision examples that hijack the actual use of a flat plane, especially with the sextant, they need the sun to do something it just simply isn't doing. So maybe that's something that we'll focus on more, because that's something that definitely actually does widen the eyes of your average Joe. You Joe Coffee and your Betty Bread Baker, as QE calls them. Well, they can just go, so the explanation for this requires the light to come in parallel, side by side, no deviation. They've only got to look out their window and know that's not the case.
Hold on, can I address this?
Well, go on.
Because I have heard counter arguments that I'm not, like, mathematically it's all nonsense. I agree to this. But look, even it's been said that if you look at crepuscular rays, it's really crepuscular because of perspective. It's not literally moving away from a specific point in all directions. It
That's
just
nice.
seems like it because of perspective.
Yeah, welcome to
making
Flat
it
Earth.
closer by, broader.
Yeah, welcome to Flat
What
Earth.
about
Their
that?
depictions show it in Muppet Vision, though, don't they? So they exclude
Yeah.
perspective, right? When they're showing you parallel sun rays, let's just go and get a slide from one of the many 10th man's slides that will easily show this. Well, there's some sun rays to start with, right? That was the last one you ended on your last presentation, actually, 10th. But I'm just going to show you what they claim is going on. If I can ever find the one I want. Of course, it's not where I need it to be now. The one I want is the picture of the sphere with the aeroplane over the top of it.
I'll find it, send it to you.
You know which one I mean? Circle that shows them dissecting a sphere Earth and then all the light coming in straight lines towards the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth.
Yeah, I know which one.
Well,
I'll get it.
can I say something while we're waiting for that slide?
Yeah.
Nathan?
Feel free.
They keep on saying that the change they often will say that the change in the angle of the sun rays is what gives us, let's say, on their globe, a summer in the north and a winter in the north, summer in the south, winter in the south, blah, blah, blah. But if the sun rays are parallel, then they can't have an angle change. There is no angle change. No matter what way you tilt that globe, there's no angle change if they're parallel. You understand what I mean? There is no change of angle. It has to be, they're always parallel on all parts of the side of the slit. So the whole They can't, like, you can't have shorter and longer days, let's just say, between summer and winter in the north, because the sun rays are parallel. Like, it's impossible.
It'd also give you a distinct Terminator line, as they claim they've got. I mean, whenever it comes to these things, because they're probably in the past things that some other flat earther has gone, well, that's absurd. You'd have this, like, distinct line across the sphere where the sun cut off. So then they just incorporate it into the rhetoric. Look, we have a Terminator line. You give it a name. You're like, I've seen a sunset. That is not what happens.
Exactly. Not what happens.
So maybe 2022, year of the sun.
It might be the year of the GPS.
I like that. Slides over there, Nathan. You got it now.
Perfect. So each of these lines that Brian's just described can't deviate are parallel in their understanding in Muppet vision. Now, Arwen's explanation a moment ago was to say, well, no, you know, these parallel lines only appear to be divergent from their position because you've got perspective. Have we? Not in this depiction. Certainly not. It's Muppet vision. There's no perspective. What are you talking about? Okay, give us your diagram that includes perspective. Oh, yeah, you hijacked that for Earth curve, didn't you? Not going to be incorporated into anything for a sphere Earth believer.
Right. I never said they didn't mock it up because of their own machinations, of course. I'm just saying that when they said that to me, I'm like, yeah, well, maybe there's something to that. But then again, I think that, like, the celestial light, including the sun, are not in actual positions at all, which makes it even more complicated and kind of bypasses the whole ordeal of parallel versus crepuscular.
Right, and they do, I know you said mock up as in create a scrap version, but they need to mock perspective. As in, it can't be claimed to be something that's ever needed. Justifiable because of why in the past? Why were we told it was justified to use perspective? Well, because we're dealing with geometry, aren't we? You not remember? We're dealing with geometry, aren't we? Yeah, we don't need the perspective. Oh, yeah? Where'd you get a geometric sphere edge for a horizon, then? What about your Terminator line? Why are the lines not coming in? Oh, that's perspective. Everything that explains almost everything we see ever includes this effect. Yeah, but it's not justified because you've got a geometric assumption that you've annihilated when you responded to the black swan and told us that it's all refracted. No longer geometric, then. I've got your sun rays back up.
They switched perspective, which is like an integral part of sight in its own, right? They switched it out for the apparent curvature.
Precisely.
Which
well
they
put.
Lose anyway, but...
Yeah, they replaced
Nathan.
perspective with Earth curve. Exactly, Arwen. Get your pictures up with your sun rays coming through the clouds.
Yeah. Also, they change it out of convenience when it's in the eclipse, right? Then they have it divergent.
Yeah, it completely ballses up their eclipse explanation because they've got the lines coming in and converging at a point on Earth to cause umbra and penumbra. Well, no. Back to this diagram. What do you mean? Look at any diagram for umbra and penumbra, and it'll show them crossing at the point of the moon to give you this dot on the Earth. And you're like, no. Hello? Even this Muppet Vision representation needs to have them coming in parallel. So, what gives? Does that work with your eclipse explanation? Answer, well, it doesn't. It flies in the face of everything they claim.
It's only parallel in Muppet Vision.
No, not at all, Arwen. That's my point. For their eclipse explanation, they'll give you... Can someone trim out and post in Master B a picture of an explanation for the eclipse? Just type in eclipse to Google and screenshot it. It will be in Muppet Vision. It'll have the sun with the moon followed from left to right and then the Earth. That's what it'll show in Muppet Vision. I guarantee it.
Yeah, that's what it'll show. It will always be Muppet Vision.
Right, but
boom.
in
Who
Muppet
put this up?
Vision,
Hold on.
It's parallel.
Props,
in the
hold
real
on.
world, it isn't.
Props. Who put this up? Thank you very much. Total solar eclipse, Monday, August 21, 2017. What do you know? It's in Muppet Vision. And what do you know? These aren't parallel. What's going on? Yeah, it just flies in the face of their explanation, doesn't it? It's just a complete contradiction. even in Muppet
Even
Vision.
even when that guy came
Partially
on,
parallel, but it's also not parallel. Apparently, it's
Oh, the
parallel and not parallel at the same time,
The
according
double
to this.
speak is strong with Arwen today.
Hey,
remember that guy that came on and he was saying that was his observation, but it was Muppet Vision, and no matter what you said, he was saying, nope, this is the way I saw it.
Yeah, and then I said, but you didn't
You're
see it
welcome
that
for
way.
the diagrams.
Say again.
You're
Kiwi.
welcome for the diagrams, by the way.
Was that you? Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was me. That's from Rice University, those three. Rice University, NASA, and Smithsonian.
Told you. Muppet Vision all the way, but suddenly no longer parallel. Oh, why is that then? Well, because they've got to come up with something to explain the eclipse in Muppet Vision. So why not just have them converging? Yeah, that'll do. And there it is. Meanwhile, for a sextant, parallel, centre of the Earth. There it is.
well, the funny thing is, though, that this is kind of a trick based on what would happen in a small scale. That's why it's shown also close to one another, because if you have like a stick and you have a light, an electric light, and you put the electric light pretty close to the stick, it will kind of have that sort of shadowy effect, right? The thing is, though, that in reality, according to the model, the distance between all of it is enormous. It's an enormous distance, which
right.
would make it very unlikely, because if you move the lamp away from the stick, the umbra penumbra
Correct.
effect will decrease. And in reality, according to the heliocentric model, the distances are astronomical, literally. So how can it then yield this kind of umbra penumbra effect? It makes no sense.
You can't even see the stuff. The sun, the moon, the earth on your average screen will disappear at the scale that you've got to zoom it out to. You know, the pixel density is not good enough to show them. You know, I've seen it done a couple of times when Jeranism did it, and he zoomed out enough to keep the pixel density high enough so that you could still see Earth. But he spends 3 minutes scrolling across to get to the sun. You know, he's there forever doing it.
Right, and the moon is supposedly very close to the Earth in relation to the sun. So it just doesn't make any sense.
I've seen it scaled at once by a TV show, and they get a passerby to hold, I can't remember what objects they were. I think it's something like a football for the sun, and then you've got an egg and a marble. Something like that, you know, so that you've got something that represents the moon, something that represents the Earth, and something that represents the sun. They say to the random passerby, how far apart do you think these are by scale? And the person moves back 6 feet and goes, yeah, hold them about arm's length apart, and you know, that's roughly right. And they go, no. And then they send the person like 3 tennis courts away and say, you hold the sun there. There you go. By scale, that's how it would look.
Yep.
Nathan, I think you caught on to my clue from the other day. I told you there's an argument that kills the globe model instantly, and it is the sun, and it's also the sextant, and it's also the black swan. It's all three. But basically, Hipparchus assumed the sun was at a far distance, and everybody after him, instead of validating if that was true or not, just said, okay, the sun is at a far distance, so all our models have to work with parallel light rays. So that's how that whole thing progressed to now. The problem is it's crepuscular, it's divergent, and every sextant video says it is impossible for the sextant for the sextant to work unless the sun's rays were parallel, because they got to go into the center of the Earth. So they have to throw that little thing in, except the sextant does work. And it works because it's the angle of the sun that casts the shadow, and not the curvature of the Earth that casts the shadow, because the rays are straight. The rays aren't straight. The rays are divergent, as anyone could go out on a day where there's clouds and see that.
Yeah,
so
definitely. As much as while I'm washing my hair thinking about these things and thinking, God, it'd be nice if I could name a year, you know, and during the show and during other shows, you're thinking, well, what would 2022 be? But obviously you've alluded to these things, so it's not a farcical coincidence that suddenly my brain is on that track. But if it does get named the Year of the Sun, I'm having it.
No, it's yours. Take it. This is a combined effort from everyone to bring the truth out about reality of Earth.
A couple of days ago,
Just
I posted
don't
a video
worship it. Just
in
kidding.
the War Room, and it was from Veritasium, and he was showing the 2017, I think it was, total solar eclipse from America, I think it was, and what we see is a black disk, what we're told is the moon, right? I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, I don't know. You couldn't see it, it was just a black disk. And it follows and tracks along with the sun. But it actually goes across the sun and follows and tracks with the sun, and then it moves off out away or whatever, right? But it comes across the sun, goes along with the sun, and then moves off out away. Now, the moon moves at 12.5, I think it is, degrees per day, whereas the sun moves at 15 degrees per hour. Now, I know they could probably throw out parallax and different things like that, but I don't know how that can work. I don't know how it can work that the moon can track with the sun. Like, what I mean is that what I've seen in that video does not prove that it's the moon to me. And I don't know if it's not the moon, but it's definitely something very strange, the way the moon can keep time with the sun. It would be an impossibility if all it can do is move at 12.5 degrees a day, and the sun is moving 15 degrees per hour.
Fine, because you've given a justification, it's a reasonable crystal ball moment to ask as a sort of round robin that everyone's opinion on this. I mean, I'll give mine, although I think it's kind of pointless, but I don't think the moon is moving in front of the sun when there's an eclipse. And likewise, the lunar explanation, which we're not going to get into now, let's forget that for a moment. But no, I don't think that's the case either. Anybody else want to pipe up and say their opinion? Do they think that, regardless of that, just let me put a few prerequisites in before you jump in, Alwyn. Regardless of whether or not you totally understand that it's not a physical rock in the sky as described in the heliocentric model, do you believe that the moon is moving in front of the sun when there's a solar eclipse? Anybody? Go ahead, Alwyn.
It doesn't look like that to me. It looks more like a rock is rolling in front of an exit in a cave. That's what it looks more like to me. Also, yeah, I don't think that one holographic light can block out literally, physically another holographic light, but they might be in some kind of condition where just them meeting negates somehow. It's weird.
Major props, right? I have never conceptualized it in that way. My mind is just slightly blown in terms of how you've just described it. Like a rock rolling in front of a cave or a well if you were at the bottom of it, right? That's how you're describing it. That's mad.
Yes.
I've never thought of it in that way.
It does kind of look like that to me.
It certainly does. That's why it's blown my mind a little bit. I'm like, wow, that's a really interesting way to describe how it looks, because that's a really concise way to describe how it looks.
Right. So just think about it. It's the big boulder that they roll in front of the cave where Jesus's body is laid.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, but seriously, think about the context of that.
Just by comparison.
Right? It's the sun.
Yeah.
It's also the sun, etc., etc. It is kind of a thing.
Maybe. But just by comparison, when you listen to Brian describing how they would describe it, number one, I'd expect to see a bit of the moon. It's moving in front of a really big light, right? So, where is it? Oh, you can't see it. Why?
You should see shadows of it.
Too bright, isn't it? It's too bright to see that.
Oh,
God. It's too bright to see that massive rock that's about to move in front of it to make it disappear completely. And at no stage while it's moving in front of it, before or after, will you see it. Obviously, said nobody ever. That's just, you move one thing in front of another that's a bright light. I'm going to expect to see something of it as it's coming along, right? It's being lit.
Well, the way they justify it, sorry, I'll stop after this. But the way they justify it is, no, the sun is just so bright. It's so bright.
Yeah, that's what I said.
You're blinded in the face of the moon. You can't see the moon. It's not bright enough. But yeah, that makes no sense. But
you're telling me that at no time somebody didn't say, well, what about in a different spectrum? Let's just have a look and find the moon in any spectrum of light, visible or not. And let's just see it moving across. That would be really cool to see, because it's there, right? That's the claim. It's a big, massive rock that's about to move in front of it. So where are all the moon hunters at eclipse time going, yeah, we're going to see it in this spectrum of light? Because it's physically there.
Nathan, you just actually stole exactly where I was going. Just very quickly before we move on with the rest of it.
Quickly, copyright Nathan Oakley, 1980, whatever's about to be said.
Yeah, okay. I took some photographs only the night before, the night before new moon, which is a few days back. I took photographs of the moon. It was lit only on its edge. It seemed to be lit on its edge, right? This really bright light on its edge, and you could see the rest of it behind, but it was like you could see it. It was distinctive from the sky, right? It wasn't lit, but it was kind of dull, right?
Yeah. You know the name for that?
Right?
It's got a name. Hold on, Alvin. It's got a name. Do you know what the name of that is?
Go on.
Earthshine.
Earthshine, that's right. Earthshine.
What it's called? Earthshine.
Earthshine, that's correct. Earthshine. Yeah, you are absolutely correct. I wouldn't mind only had that in a video of mine and I forgot about it. But anyway, that's besides the point. The point is that the point I'm making is I tried to post the photographs. I have a problem here with my internet at the moment. They won't post for me to Masturbate or to the Warren. The reason is that I changed filters, right? Just with basic software on the computer. I change filters and it brings it out from the background way more. So at new moon, right, the same as at this solar eclipse time, you should be able to take photographs of the sky and change the filters and see the moon. If it's there, we should be able to see it by changing filters.
Yeah. And we'd have it already. I mean, I can put a hand on heart and say this is never going to materialise because it would have done already. So, you know, for that alone, it's not something moving in front of something else. You know, I would quicker buy Arwin's explanation of it being like whatever the sun is the end of a tunnel and someone's blocking up that tunnel and rolling something in front of the end of the tunnel that's letting the light through that hole, and the hole would be the sun in this example. Because that's how it looks. But describing something else physically orbiting in front of it, I just don't buy it.
It does look like the sun itself, if you stare at it, it does look like a tunnel itself. It looks like a tunnel if you stare at it. So what Arwen says is like it's like a little eyepiece. You know the way you put an eyepiece in front of like a steel eyepiece in front of a lens? It's kind of like that. It just, you know, you're just blocking it. You're blocking that tunnel or blocking that light.
But I find the whole moon supposedly doing that very bizarre because, hey, it just disappears entirely for 3 days straight. Like no trace of it, no dark moment where it's like almost the dark side of it. No, it's gone. And if it's actually moving in front of the sun, then there should be like a big approach shadow, right? Because just because you don't see it before it touches the sun and starts obscuring it, well, on another location on Earth, it should be actually already blocking the sun because it's supposed to be a physical object physically moving in the way of the light. But none of that really happens like that. It just like suddenly the sun is blocked. And you end up with this stripe of darkness that they always like to draw out to show you where the eclipse is visible, right, on the map. That's not what a physical object blocking a light looks like. It's just so bizarre.
You think the year 2022 might be the year the celestial sphere dies?
Excuse me. 2022 Year of the Sun, copyright Nathan Oakley, 1980.
Yeah, I second that. The sphere has died already.
And the Celestials are not dying anytime soon.
No, they're mapping the sky.
Right. Only in the end times are they going to fall.
I just want to throw out there that Nathan is not going to be happy about this, but a couple of weeks ago, I predicted that 2022 was going to be the year of GPS and natural satellites.
But you didn't copyright it.
No, I didn't copyright it. You're right, Howard.
Yeah, the sun has a lot to do with everything that they are postulating, which is fallacious to begin with, because it's all based on assumptions. And you got to get that book. That is QE still on? Because I heard it was Robert Bassano's with him talking about kings dethroned. The little book, and I ordered it, and I'm going to read it again. But it was really good. It was all about Hipparchus initially saying that, and then everybody followed suit without verification. And this is how we end up. He actually reads it on his channel too. If you don't have the book, you can go to his YouTube channel. He reads the whole book.
To speak to what you first said, which is to say everything relies upon the sun, their concepts of time, their orbital motions. It's at the center of their world. So in terms of how they describe it and what they have it doing and being, it's critical. It's the name of
Very critical.
It's the name of the religion, right? Heliocentric.
Yep. Except, as you recall, when it comes to celestial navigation with a sextant, you have to assume that the Earth is stationary and it's the luminaries that are moving. Just to make it easier for them, according to Virus.
Yeah, assuming geocentrism is the necessity of the sextant, and therefore you're absolutely right. If you're going to be asserting a heliocentric position, then that simply doesn't jive with reality. And what are you doing when you're moving around? You can't get much more real than that.
Yeah, that's why it's comical when you research Eratosthenes and the shadows caused by Earth's curvature rather than the angle of the sun over a plane, because the sextant flies directly into that false claim and destroys it with triangulation and the GP of the star and the flat baseline.
Well, if Earth's flat, you would need a circle of equal altitude, or a sextant would use a circle of equal altitude with a flat baseline to triangulate stars thousands of miles away.
And that's exactly what they teach in celestial navigation, is a circle of equal altitude with a radius to the observer from the GP of the star. And it's a circle, two-dimensional, and the radius is always a straight line. But they don't like that radius.
I don't know why they ever went in that direction. It's so ridiculous that they justify in their heads like, oh yeah, we just take the circle as a straight line or the straight line as a circle. And then to think like, yeah, that's perfectly fine, right? That's normal. It's just twisting everything like in a really bizarre way when you make straight into bend and bend into straight. I don't understand why they've just accepted that that is something you can do. I don't understand that.
Because you can discern a paradox, Arwin, and they don't want to.
I guess so. It must be very convenient. I just don't believe how they can just maintain this flair of sensibility on top of that. Like, I mean, woo, you can think of whatever you like, you know, oh, fantasy, imagination, woo. But like, oh yeah, but we are the ones in the knowledge and we know it's a globe. Oh yeah, and it's okay to take straight lines as curved and curved lines as straight. I don't understand how they can maintain the flair of sensibility and science with
Fanatical
with that
religious
attitude. I don't
zealotry.
understand that.
Fanatical religious zealotry. It's been answered on the show hundreds, if not at least 1,000 times. So, and that King's the Throne, that was Cathexis, not Robert Pisano.
Thank you. I knew it was one of them.
No. Yep.
I guess you're right. It's just really weird to see that that's the world religion. That is the theocracy of our age. And it's so widespread, so many people. It's really bizarre to be in this place again in the modern era. But we'll get through it. Just have to get real.
What do you mean we'll get through it? They're the one with the brain damage.
My wolf pups will get through it. That's for sure. They'll be fattened up.
No one in Discord want to challenge any of these absolute ball killer claims that we're saying here on the show? Are you all hiding now?
Well, the thing about it is that all they could do is come in with the same arguments as Dr. Bob came in with. There'd be nothing else, like, because they'd have to just do exactly the same thing. So that there's no other direction to go with it.
We did have a retarded professor come on today. He was the professor of science, QE. You would have loved this guy.
Where is he?
I don't know if he's still around.
No, he's gone.
He had an experiment for the radius of Earth.
Ain't that?
Some guy called Andrew C., who claimed to be a professor, but he was a lawyer.
Guys,
Who busted him?
what do you guys
Nathan.
think of calling the situation with the globers the globe theocracy? I think that one would really hit hard if we just call it that. It's the globe theocracy.
I think we all busted him.
Isn't it?
What it really is the one world religion that everybody's waiting for, that's already been here for a very long time.
Yeah, but it's not just a religion, though. It's a theocracy. It's forced on you. You're stupid if you don't believe it, right? That makes it kind of theocratic. It's not just like, oh, everybody just happens to believe this. No, it's forced on you. You're supposed to know it. You're supposed to believe it. That kind of makes it theocratic.
Well, it's coming in the form of climate change. That's what they're going to use. That's what they're going to use. That's the next play for their false globe.
Exactly.
Yeah, look.
But it's already a theocracy, though. It has been for like a century.
Now, if you spread false news about climate change, you get kicked off of YouTube, I think, or something, Facebook maybe.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But you know what?
Climate change.
You know what? The truth can weather that storm.
You should be struck by lightning.
Are you going to charge me with something?
The only thing ironic about calling it a theocracy is that theocracy has the word theo in it, which is actually God. Well, that is the very thing that they fundamentally deny. But effectively, it is a theocracy because it is a religion.
You just missed 3 good puns.
I got him. I got him, Dent.
I know you got it.
No,
I
we
just
didn't.
love
We
it
didn't
when
diss them. We just chose to
what?
ignore them.
I didn't hear the last guy. What did he say?
I said we did not miss them. We just chose to ignore them.
Someone there knows me.
Excuse me. I didn't hear what you said. Can you say it again?
I'm going to ignore you now.
It's all a matter of whether you think it's funny or not.
That's not the point. The point was he ignored me, but then he had to tell me he ignored me. So he really didn't ignore me.
He bolted.
No, it's
He bolted. Yeah,
it's
there
whether
you
you
go.
think it's funny or not.
I would respond, but I'm still ignoring you.
It's called glazing over it. You just move on.
Speaking of fanatical religiotards, there's one right there. That's the one talking to you. He's one.
Oh, who is he?
What?
Extremicist. Numpty dipshit.
Extremicist. Why'd you use that name for your channel?
I made it up. Oh, wait, I'm ignoring you. Sorry, forgot.
This is how you arrive to knowledge, by ignoring.
It's bliss, so I've heard.
No, by parroting morons. He's good at that.
So, extremicist, you believe the Earth is a sphere rotating at 15 degrees an hour and all the stuff that goes with that model?
Yes.
Or do you just
vehemently?
Or do you just think it's cool to oppose flat earthers because that's been suggested to you? You know, I think a lot of globers out there just actually think they've been convinced it's cool to oppose flat Earth by a bunch of numpties that surround them. They don't even know anything about it.
I know he's ignoring me, but that doesn't mean you should answer for him. So could he answer for himself?
I was waiting until it was my turn, and QE actually did answer for me. But yes, to answer the question, I do.
Do what?
And as to what Arwen said, it's not so much it's cool, but I do have to say I find the psychology of both sides, for that matter, flat Earth and globe Earth, kind of interesting.
He's a glober, already said that.
Arwen,
Hold on.
please.
Man.
Just what? Let me ask him something. By globe Earth, when you say you find both sides interesting, I assume you mean anti-flat Earth, right? Not globe Earth. That's just normal people.
Well, the flat earthers and whatever opposes the flat earth, yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Anti-flat Earth.
Yes.
What do you find fascinating about them?
I just find the psychology interesting of flat earthers seem to deny everything or ignore the evidence. Not going to get into it.
Oh, so it's
But that's
not
what it
psychological then.
Hold on,
It's not
guys. He
psychological.
got about five. Hello. Let's get some control from the off. This guy seems calm, reasonable. So, including you, QE, don't just. Yes, it's funny, but just try and laugh on mute, if you don't mind. Yeah, thank you. Go ahead. Feel free to. All of you, just get it out and then let him continue for at least more than 10 seconds. Thank you very much.
He'll go on an incoherent monologue about his baseless generalized
okay.
assertions from
Yeah, that's cool.
2015.
That's okay.
Everyone denies. Flat earthers deny. They
Well, you're
have
doing
no
it for him now.
evidence.
You told us to share our pain, Nathan, so we will share our pain.
Yeah, not you, him.
Okay, as I was saying, flat earthers seem to deny everything, and then globe earthers seem to think, anti-flat earthers seem to think that they convince the flat earthers that they're wrong.
That's great. What do we deny?
Everything that
everything.
Shit, that was 3 seconds, QE. Hello. Hello. So the question on the table. What is it we deny? Go ahead.
I don't really want to get into an argument over what rules are, but I'm just saying one side says you deny everything, the other side says you don't deny anything.
Okay, we're not saying
Everything
anything.
and anything.
Everyone
That's so
else, hello,
specific.
hello. That's fine. Yeah, don't worry about generalizations. Just give us an example.
Well, we were discussing it in the text chat. The atmosphere, that there's a dome. That you claim there's a dome, and we say there's no evidence for the dome, and you deny that. You say there's a dome.
I don't say that.
We do?
Hold on. That's fine.
Wow.
Hello. Okay, I don't personally say that. So number one, no, I don't. I haven't claimed that. But
That's not a denial. Anyway.
Hello. But you have made a claim though in what you've just said. You said atmosphere.
I don't really want to talk about it. Like I said, I didn't want to get into
You did.
discussion.
What do you mean you don't want to talk about it? You did.
I'm done. Thank you.
But you did talk about it. You're saying I don't want to talk about it. You did. He's stuck himself on server mute. I cannot believe it.
Well, Kiwi warned you.
He wants to talk about it. He just doesn't want to be addressed on anything.
He's a prophet. He said he's done, and he ain't kidding. He's done.
That's extremism.
Look, Kiwi came on and nailed who he was. We tested it. Kiwi was right.
Yeah, at least we got to see it though.
He just provided a perfect example of how Glovers like to project their feelings onto us.
I loved
Yeah,
how
all based on
specific
stereotype
he was.
fallacy.
He was so specific in his claims. It's amazing. Like,
All
he
based
said
on
it-
stereotype fallacy. Flat earthers, as soon as that comes out of your mouth, it's a stereotype fallacy. Everything else is void. That's how stupid it is. You don't realize it because you're a globetard. Right?
Yeah,
It's
but
2015,
John,
vague,
everything.
generalized, hand wave dismissals, right? That's what we got.
He didn't want to get into the weeds, with logic and stuff.
Yeah, he knows.
No, it's
better.
just about
My wolf
everything and
puppy.
nothing. That's all that matters. Just everything and nothing that's enough, right? You don't need to get specific because as soon as you did, he ran away.
Yeah, he did run
As
from
you
our
do.
before we could even get to asking about our. He needed our for atmosphere. As soon as atmosphere came up, he's like, "Oh God, let's just make the question better run."
Well, it seems like he spoke in the third person to me because he's like an analyst on the side studying the psychology of it all. But what is his position? What is his real stance? And then he runs.
Well, you just explained basically the MO of Mr. Extremist himself. That's what he does. He sits on the sideline and makes comments and doesn't put in any input at all as far as what he believes.
Whenever I disappear, I disappeared for about 10 minutes. I got myself a coffee, I did my dishwasher, I had a chat with my wife, told the kids that they smell, because they do. And then I got back to it and I'm like, okay, so now there's a fundy involved, because presumably at some point or another somebody said, "Isn't that right, Nathan?" No reply. Oh, he's buggered off then.
No, I think I called out anyone in Discord want to talk, and he came on. Were you away at that point?
No, he was joking about your puns, Tent. That's what it was. He was saying he ignored your puns, something like that.
Right. But
So
I
he
didn't
just
know
came
he
in
was
as a
Glober.
joking fashion.
Right, but I didn't know he was a psychologist or a Glober or whatever he was.
No,
I
he
called
was just
it-
joining in on the joke.
I called it 18 months ago. Tables have turned. Yeah, now they're scared of us. That's the bottom line. They are terrified of us and they will run if they are involved in a wrangle-dangle, unless they're... I don't know how to describe virus other than stupid. You said fearless, but, being fearless would at least, you would hope, infer that they've got some modicum of intelligence to not get into a position that's going to have their head removed. But then again, given that he constantly has his head removed and respawns, that's obviously a self-defeating statement, so I'll shut up.
Yeah, intelligence and fearlessness usually don't, you got to have intelligence to be scared.
Yeah, but I heard you speak about virus. It's not about fearlessness. It's that if I could go to any of the globe or servers any day if I'm willing to just straight out say anything. When the push comes to shove, virus will say anything. He won't start off that way. He'll start off making a claim and whatever. When push comes to shove, he'll just say anything. So you don't have to have any fear when you know you're willing to say anything. Because you don't, trepidation and fear comes from having to back up what you say. But if you're willing to just say anything, you never have to, there's nothing to be afraid of. Because you're just going to say anything. Nothing matters.
Plus, he lies. So he'll say, I didn't say conservation of momentum. Well, the reason we're into this wrangle-dangle is because you defined Coriolis as being a conservation of momentum over a moving surface, end quote. So he's just going to lie and say he hasn't said that when he's up against the wall. So not only is he not scared to say anything at any time, regardless of how stupid, he's also more than willing to lie. Hold on,
that's the thing, you see.
Hold on, just one sec. Did you want to add something, Bendy Space Time? Feel free. Bendy Space Time, are you just mic wide open, not realising?
Check, Bendy, where you at?
Yeah, sorry, you caught me away from my mic. I was going to just add that Extremisys is your second biggest fan, only behind Akumu Virus.
What you mean he's always in this chat?
Yes, absolutely. And he always listens to the show, practically every day.
Yep, giving his color commentaries. That's all he can do.
He's a fanboy.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of them. Bobby in the chat. He's there on every live show and every re-up.
Bobby Steels?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is a fanboy, very much so.
These are our opponents, in case anyone's wondering why we're like, oh, why are you self-indulgent this much? Why are you saying you've got these great fans? No, these are our opponents. Super fans that hate us.
Well, he clearly
Bobby
stated
Steels
that he was
doesn't
interested.
really hate you. He's just kind of,
Hold on 1 second, Darwin. Go ahead, the hammer.
Well, he clearly stated, and sorry for interrupting you, Arwen, that he that he was interested in the psychology, right? And that's one of their tactics. They try to bring out the emotional side or the, oh, look how crazy this person is. One of the things I find interesting is that in coming upon this information, you have to let go of yourself and let go of the idea that people are going to look at you weird for some of the things that you're going to say. That's one of the baseline things that you have to overcome in order to even indulge in this kind of topic. So for them to try and I guess it's a way again to strengthen your armor, but I don't know why they even try and come at that tactic.
Aku is a shill, bro. Akum virus.
Shill?
Yeah.
No, he's a
shill.
shell game player. He's a shell game player, and he just likes to play, and then he gets caught cheating, and he still keeps on playing. That's.
Oh, I think he gets paid to muddy the waters here every time I'm on here. People argue with him, and he makes no sense when he wants to, and he makes sense when he wants to. I think he's a shill.
Doesn't make him a shill.
You think he gets paid
that
for
makes
this?
him a double speaking liar.
Yes,
Doesn't make him a right. You gotta. It's easy to see some nefarious intent just because someone's got so much pride in what they believe in that they're more than happy to double speak and lie their way around it. That doesn't make him a paid agent of the government here to cause disruption on flat Earth debate. No, I really don't think so.
Not with the Coom virus. He's different. That's not what I'm talking about. He literally just makes no sense sometimes and makes people argue with each other. And he listens. He's here every day. He started sending me Japanese words. The evil one, Aku, is also an evil demon from Samurai Jack. I'm telling you, he's a shill.
Well, it's a shill for the globe. I'll give you that, right? It's a shill for the globe. Yeah, okay.
No, he's just a zealot. He's not getting paid to do this.
I agree.
He's just another fanboy.
I agree.
No, this is his favorite hangout. He likes this hangout more than the Globe hangouts. It's just that he doesn't want to agree with any of us. But he still likes this, and he likes us more than he likes the lads on the Globe hangouts.
He likes attention.
Brian's hit the nail exactly
Yeah, I was
on the
going to
head.
say that. I think he just likes the attention.
That too.
Hey, back.
Yeah, but he gets
Back
it.
to that
I'm
guy.
sorry.
But he gets
I
it here.
have to disagree.
Oh, okay. I mean, I get your point. And there's been, I could easily put another cap on and say, yeah, if he's not paid agent, he wants to be because he's paying so much close attention. But I figured this out ages ago, especially with the argument that was most prevalent with virus, which is Coriolis. Cognitively, they will do that anyway. And back in the day, whenever I ever argued with anybody about Coriolis, I would think they must be trained to do these kind of mental gymnastics and jump around from position to position, decrying the position they held a moment ago, lying about even holding it, holding a completely contradictory position till you overcome it, and then going back to the original position. That kind of mental gymnastics, they've got to have trained to do that. And then when they figured it out, no, they literally just have a contradiction for an argument. That's what they've got. So that's how they argue it. And it doesn't matter who you are. It don't have to be paid to have the contradiction of Coriolis effect for an argument and try and position it. And try as they may, they always end up dancing around in those circles, cognitively painful, as I assume it is, for Virus, who will often show that cognitive pain through chuckles and laughter and pauses where, if you're going to maybe read a bit too much into them, you'll say, yeah, that's his cognitive pain. Glaringly obvious to me. Some people wouldn't agree. But that...
I'll tell you what's funny. It's crazy how I'm on here like once every 2 weeks, and every time I'm on here, people are talking about Akum virus every time, and I've been in conversations with him before, and the guy, he's not stupid, but he when he wants to be stupid, he's stupid, and I don't know why he makes us fight all the time, and that's the only conclusion I have. He's probably here just to
He's answered
get
that.
us
We've
off
asked him that
topic.
directly. And he said he finds it entertaining and he's here to learn. Now, I take both of those answers when he told me. It's sincere. I actually believe him. Now, just because he rebels against, fights against, braces against what we say, he's still here listening. He's one of the metaphorical people that have rolled down the hill. Now, yeah, it puts him on the anti-flat earth side. It doesn't make him a shill. And it doesn't mean he doesn't enjoy hearing the education he gets here. Maybe he's sharpening his wits for his globe faith, because that's what he's attempting to do. Well, you can only take it at face value. Now, there's other exceptions to that I'm not going to list off, that I think you could easily make a stronger argument for them being paid chills. Not that I'm going to make those arguments, but not virus.
Well,
No,
if
he's just a
someone,
fan.
if someone is paid for doing something like this, you would probably have no problem sitting down all day and listening and talking. So, maybe
People
that's
underestimate
why
how
he's
much time
on
people
here
have
all
got.
the time.
Even if you've got a full-time job, right, and you're waking, let's say, 8 hours a day. Well, even then, you've got a shed load of time on your hands. People don't appreciate how much time people have got on their hands. They're like, well, he spends all day in this server. You're like, no, he doesn't. And I bet you anything he could easily be holding down a full-time job and just spend exactly the amount of time he does here. So, it doesn't necessarily mean that because he's got a lot of time invested in being here, that he's being paid to do so. I just don't agree with that. I mean, there's
I
other
know,
people...
I agree, but it doesn't mean that he's here because he's interested, just because he's on here a lot. It doesn't, it might,
Well, I think that goes without
it's not a
saying.
No,
I think that goes
no,
without
he
saying.
is.
He could be anywhere and
Hey,
he's here.
he's loving everything we're saying about him. Can I progress this conversation to something else that deals with him and others?
Sure.
But the guy who came on before this last guy, who talked about the other guy who sits on the side with psychology. What was his channel name?
Extremists, I'm back.
Hello.
Not you. You're the guy we're going to talk about.
Oh,
but then if you're going to volunteer, I'll take you. So,
Oh, no, I don't want to talk about anything. I'm just back. But I'm actually in the middle of something. I'm just listening.
Well, I appreciate your ignoring me loudly. Thank you. Maybe
You're
we
welcome.
can move on to someone who can ignore me, not ignore me. But it was that other guy who says that you come, the one who is in the middle of something, to do psychology. Well, maybe you can answer me this. when QE puts up that the sextant requires triangulation in the right angle and 90 degree from the sun's GP or star's GP, and he cites the sources, how come the ballers could see that these sources come from their side, from sextant handbooks even? What's the psychology when they deny triangulation when the very tool is made for triangulation and angles?
Well, that's the point, 10th man, is that the psychology, they just put the, oh, well, they don't understand the sextant argument out there then, right? Well, you just don't understand that.
I'm quoting from the manual. I'm quoting from the sextant handbooks. I'm quoting from captains of ships who've traveled 40, 60,000 nautical miles. Can't I just believe them?
Well, absolutely. But then, like we've seen with Dr. Bob and the misunderstanding of the, or different interpretations of how you get the different measurements, right? That everybody's arguing about. So then,
no, I gotta stop you there.
Go ahead.
Bob never referenced anyone. He said the word we, and he never referenced anyone or gave a citation, whereas I've and others who have studied the sextant can only go to the globe version handbooks of how sextant works, and Bob could readily go to his own side and get those same globe versions, but he chose not to because it would destroy his made-up argument for it.
Right, and he's hoping that based on the idea that they believe that most people are lazy and not intelligent enough to go do their own research, they think they're going to believe what he's saying because most people believe what the main idea, right? The psychology, because people believe it, therefore I'm right.
Right, that's what he's doing. He's saying, I'm a globe believer. The globe is what you're standing on. Therefore, my explanation's right, and they're idiots who don't understand the sextant. That's what you're saying. He's leveraging, right?
Exactly. Yep.
So when he has
it's not a logical argument. Oh,
so when he has a grease board with his own drawing of a circle, orthographic view of his sphere with two radius lines, and Nathan asks him what are those two straight lines emanating from the central angle of that circle? Oh, I don't know. You think he's getting far?
Getting far?
No, absolutely not. Not in my view.
No, getting far. He didn't know what a circle was. Bob Rooney doesn't know what a circle is. That's at the point that we're at.
I just want to know what the horror value was.
Yeah, where's his whore? That's what we've been waiting for.
Well, that's his acronym or short spelling for horizon, but he's got a bigger problem with the HO, the HO, height observed. So I'm glad he didn't put the HO and the whore together.
Whores and hoes?
Yeah,
With
there's
the hoe.
HOHS.
What's your language?
Also, I want to know, like, how does he think he gets away with claiming a sphere, yet because he doesn't notify it, he doesn't have a radius to that sphere? That was amazing, that moment.
He said he
I
doesn't
leave for
need a
couple
straight
weeks,
line.
and now we're talking about hoes and whores. What happened?
Well,
It's
that's not my
Bob's
problem.
diagram.
He claims there's no need for a straight line.
Yep. Bob conjured forth his diagram, and it had a horror value, and it was a straight line to the observer, but it was straight into the sky. So yeah, it's a mystical horror value. What is this?
Let me quote him.
Where do I have to look in the sky to actually meet this horror line that he drew?
Let me quote him. You'll have an error because it's not a straight line. But how much is that error? Like with full pride, he says that. So he knows what a straight line is. And he admits you'll have an error. So when when he doesn't do the proper site reductions, one would be calibrating your sextant so it's at 0 degrees, 0 minutes. Your mirrors have to be aligned properly, holding it sideways with the screws on either side of the two mirrors. The index mirror that moves and the horizon mirror that's stationary on the sextant arm. But in addition to that, you have to do dip, which is height above sea level. So you got to minus that 10, 14 feet if you're on the small craft, or 40, 50 feet if you're on the big ship. And why do you have to minus that? You have to minus that to get it on the ocean surface so that the GP of the sun or star is a straight line to you and not off by 14 feet. And he says, oh, you'll have an error because it's not a straight line, but how much is that error? Well, thank you for admitting that when you use the tool properly and calibrate it and do all the site reductions, that it proves you're on the flat earth. Thank you, Bob.
You know why they call him Bob?
Bob Rooney.
Yeah. Well, his real name's Robert, but where he's denied R so much, he won't answer to it anymore. So they call him Bob.
Very good.
Yeah, it's like whack-a-mole with that numpty dipshit. He doesn't. Number one, he doesn't know what a circle is. He's scary. Just looking at him, flathead Herman Munster, utter idiot. Doesn't know what a circle is, which is tear-jerking belly laugher. Asks when you look through a sextant, what do you see? And he not a horizon with Bob.
He
Thanks
also
for the
doesn't like
feedback.
to be reminded about 90-degree angles since it's part of his physique, if you know what I mean.
I keep hearing from these guys that we don't even need the horizon. Someone was saying that you could even measure the angle from, say, a plumb line up through your head and up to the sky, and measure that angle to the star, and then make calculations from there based on 69 miles per degree.
Sorry. The Nautical Almanac or the Air Almanac does not have the GP where your head is in the ocean. It has the GP where the sun or star is at the exact hour, moment, and second. So you got to have that 90 degrees.
You talking about that line that goes from the center of the earth up through Stick Bob's ass up to the 90? Yeah. Well, where'd they get that from?
Yeah. Yeah. Or a line perpendicular to that, and just assume a point there and measure from there.
No, they just made it up.
Wouldn't they need to include the R value when they do that somehow?
Well, you can't have a perpendicular line unless it's straight. So that's out of the question.
No, but I mean, if you're going to calculate from the center of Earth for your calculations, you're going to actually need to know the distance to that center of the Earth, which is actually literally the radius value that you're going to need to include in that system.
If you're going to calculate, from the center of the Earth, you need to be at the center of the Earth. The sextant is on the surface of the Earth, which they say is curved. You can't have a perpendicular with a curved surface. So sextant can never, ever, ever, ever work on this Earth if it's a ball.
Correct.
Ever.
But they don't understand that. They think it's working. Yeah, because it does work, but it's working because you're working off a flat surface. You're morons.
Right, but if you still believe it's going to work and you're going to include the literal radius value distance within that geometric setup, you're going to actually need that radius value because you're utilizing it literally in your setup. You see? So
Well,
you're
that's
going
what
to
the
need
black
R for that.
swan.
You're going to need
But the-
R for that form of triangulation.
But Arwen, the black swan neutered them. They don't have that.
I'm just saying, for Bob's form of utilization of the sextant that he thinks works on the globe, you are going to literally need R to do that. You're going to have its
You're asking a
measurement
guy-
needed.
You're asking a guy who doesn't know what a circle is or a straight line is for that.
Well, he wouldn't have a circle of equal altitude. He'd have like a cone of divergent zeniths, right? Like, so it doesn't even make sense when you beg the question of R.
Yeah, the sextant could never work on the curved surface. So it doesn't matter. The tool works, so it must be a flat surface because you have to do dip correction to get it to the ocean level so that could be the radius from the GP to U. And the more precise you do the instrument, you're within a half a mile to a mile using a metal sextant. Bob says it doesn't matter. I could not do all those corrections. I'll be off by a few miles. By just stating that, he's really absolutely validating how the tool works when it's used properly. It works on a flat surface.
It does. The procedures that are currently designated for the sextant are made for a flat surface. However, I'm going to get a little ball win here at last minute. On a globe, it could probably still be used in a different way to still get orientation results. But you're going to have to make that setup completely different because, yeah, you're looking towards stars that are technically below you and et cetera, right? That doesn't actually happen. But you could probably still use the sextant on a globe Earth, but it would work very differently. That's my conclusion.
You need an
No, you
horizontal line.
No, you can't. You can't get an elevation angle off a curved baseline. Sorry.
Well, maybe if you standardized how much to that it would deviate, it's probably not going to be nearly as accurate as a sextant on a flat Earth, right? But it could potentially still be used in some form.
No, it cannot. Define elevation angle.
Right. Well, on a sphere, that's going to be problematic because that kind of like changes over distance.
Yeah.
But
Well,
if you knew the sphere, then you could potentially incorporate that in the utilization.
No, you can't. There's
Are
no
you sure?
potential about it. You're not getting an elevation angle then.
Arwen, do you realize that it isn't just the sextant, but you need the location of the star's zenith at that particular hour, moment, and second. So it can never work on a curved surface.
Why? Isn't the Earth supposedly in the heliocentric model a sphere underneath the perfect sphere of the heavens? Wouldn't the sphere of the heavens be enough of an orientation point to get it accurately? Right? There's always going to be something directly above you, even on a sphere.
You just described and agreed that the sextant could only work on a flat surface. So that's number one. Number two.
What?
Oh, gosh. The sextant could only work with straight lines, period. End of story. It's an angle measuring device that you can't use that tool to do what you want it to do with a curved surface. So pick another tool that doesn't exist.
I don't see that. If you could incorporate the standard drop deviation, then
there is no drop.
I know where there isn't, but I'm talking about a sextant on a globe in this case.
That's what I'm trying to tell you.
I'm still convinced that it could probably be used. It would just not be as effective as on a flat Earth, where it's so direct, so perfect, right? It's perfect on a flat Earth. I'm just saying it might still be used on a globe. It just wouldn't be as accurate.
It can't.
It can't because 6 times I told you can't because the elevation angle. You can't take an elevation angle on a curved surface. I'll put it in ball busters. So you're gonna have to figure out something else.
You need the horizon, Arwen. You need the horizon. It needs to be vertical. Come on.
You have to come up.
I don't
You have to
know.
come up with something else
I'm
other
being
than
stubborn in
elevation
this.
there. I'm
There's
just
two
saying you're
ways
gonna have to come
use
up with
this.
something. Oh God.
Go on.
Fuck's sake. All right, I got better things to do. Later.
Have a good breakfast.
You got two ways to use the sextant. Horizontal angles, holding it sideways when you're offshore, trying to figure out the angles between three lighthouses or a church building or something else. And the vertical angle, which is the way you use it at sea with a star in the sky. And that's off the horizon. It's got GP. And it's an almanac. It's an exact location on Earth. And if that's curving away from you, that obsolete tool called the sextant can't work on that curved surface. Get another tool.
Well,
But the
what
sextant
if you afterward apply spherical geometry patterns to that? It's very convoluted. I'm not saying it's going to be just as great as it is on a flat Earth, in which it just perfectly works immediately, so direct, right? It's perfect. I'm just saying with globe calculations, typical patterns, you could probably still kind of use it on the globe. However, there's no way to actually test it because we don't live on a globe, for the record.
So you're talking about the second set of books, right? The one that you show the IRS and the one that you don't show the IRS. You got a second set of books.
I'm writing the books as I go.
And it can't work on a curved surface. There's no way. It'll be off by forget it. You wouldn't even be in the vicinity.
Well, if you could basically coordinate it in relation to where the globe is going to start blocking things behind it, right? You know, the geometric horizon, you could adapt the calculation system to that.
You don't see a geometric horizon.
Yeah. You know, that they screwed up with the whole claim of terrestrial refraction. Right. So let's make one thing straight. On the globe, if there was such a thing as terrestrial refraction, in that specific case, the sextant is going to be completely useless. But if there's no terrestrial refraction, it should still be applicable. It would be a little bit more convoluted, but it could be used, in my opinion.
Let me give you something that a navigating school has on YouTube. It says the height of eye, if it's normally 3 minutes of arc, generally speaking, meaning the average amount that you're above the ocean surface with a sextant. I think he's dealing with a small boat here. So let's just assume 15 feet, 9 feet, something like that. Height of eye, 3 minutes of arc, generally speaking. 4 seconds of error in a calculation in time equals 1 mile. If 4 seconds is 1 mile of an error, and your 3 minutes of arc is your height of eye above sea level, how many 4 seconds in 3 minutes? Let alone if you didn't have the proper index correction or other things calibrating the tool in the first place.
Hey, I already disclaimed this by saying it would be absolutely, definitively less accurate as when using on a flat Earth.
How much less?
Too much for me to personally care.
Thank you. So drop it. The tool is not made for a curved surface. End of story. Was it the Retro
It
Bill
probably wouldn't have been adopted if the Earth was actually a globe. I agree.
Retro Bill sent a $10 super chat to Nathan yesterday saying, I want to hear 10th man's shortest answer for how sextant works. It was pretty short.
Dude, this might be a little confusing, but I am absolutely on your side. I'm just trying to be perfectly technically correct.
I know
and
you
I do
are.
still
I'm just
think that
Baldwin.
No, not Baldwin. This is not Baldwin. This is just about technicals. right?
No, I know you are. I was just killing Baldwin for the audience sake. That's all.
All right.
Yeah, I know who you are. I know you play both sides, and I know you play their side better than they do.
Yeah, but it can't work on a curved surface. We've established that. You'd be freaking lost.
It would never
I don't know about that though. It would probably be a lot more of a hassle, but it might be doable.
Okay,
if you have no better way to do it, then
Okay, so if you can triangulate and know the exact position, but you have a tool that doesn't work because the surface is curved, you will never have the exact position. You will never even be in the vicinity.
But you would be. You would be.
You'd be lost.
I don't know, man. I tried.
Kudos. Good
I
try.
think it could potentially work a little. It would just not be as great. It would probably, on a sphere, never have been adopted because it wouldn't be effective enough.
Hold on. If it did, they would never have the book stating what the book state.
I agree.
right.
I agree, Neil. I'm not saying that the Earth is a globe. I'm just saying, what if it was a globe?
No, I know.
It could maybe still work a little, just not.
But then they wouldn't say.
Then they wouldn't have to write all that shit.
Then they wouldn't say that the sextant has an accuracy of within a half a mile to a mile when used properly. They can't say that then.
I agree. I agree with that part.
Story.
It would still be kind of used as a rough exploration tool, perhaps.
Okay,
still.
I could hit a nail with a screwdriver, but a hammer is better. I get it.
I know, but when a screwdriver is all you got, right? You know what I mean? If you're gonna live on a freaking globe, you gotta use what you can,
No, I'm talking about
flathead nail with a Phillips head screwdriver into a concrete floor. No matter what you do, you need a hammer.
Or a really, really hard forehead.
And the
maybe I'll use something else. How about you can't use a nail clipper on an oak tree when you have a chainsaw?
That's a better illustration.
I agree with you there, and that's why I said I defaulted on a globe. It's gonna not be nearly as good as it is on a flat Earth. So just for the record, I understand.
Missing the point. You're missing the point. It wouldn't even be invented on a globe because it can't work with a curved surface. It just wouldn't be the tool. It'd be something else.
No, it wouldn't be the tool, but it might still be a tool. It's just one of the tools that is like,
okay, fine.
It's not that accurate, but sometimes it can assist. It would be like that.
Fine. Go ahead, navigate with your toenail clipper. Go ahead.
Dude, I can't. The Earth is not a globe. I can't test it. I can only derive it.
Don't call us when you're lost at sea.
What?
Don't call us when you're lost at sea.
Okay, when I'm lost at sea on the Earth being a globe, I won't call you. So expect my phone call every day because it's not a globe.
I tried to use it. Make it believe it was the globe, and I don't know where the hell I am.
If we don't hear from Marvin for a month, we know he's lost at sea.
There's a lot of water.
I was trying to make my way to the Undying Lands, but the Earth turned out to be a globe, so the sextant's kind of useless.
Always luck he'll find a new island, be rich with freaking oil and gold.
Oh, you mean Cuba?
And all he brought was a nail clipper. Thanks, Arwen. That was fun.
You're welcome. It's mutual. Is Nathan on break or something? Who cares? 4 more hours, guys. 4 more hours.
keeping the show going for us. He knows that it's the final
4
day.
more hours.
I'm a professor.
A professor of what?
Oh, that guy was really, it was hilarious.
Don't forget to say science. He was a professor of science.
I'm a professor. It's just you teach things. That's it. That's what makes you a professor.
That dude thought he was slick, but then you could hear him. The things he was saying, you could tell he's listened and heard of this show quite a bit before he came here. So he made this little plan that he had, and it backfired. That's what happened.
It always backfires.
I'm a
It's
professor.
inevitability.
I'm a professor, and then he, no credentials or anything, just starts spewing the same rhetoric, the same parroted garbage. I know you're gonna mute me. Well, how do you know that?
He
Been here
professed
before?
it. He professed it. I'm going to be muted. And he was correct.
Yep.
Bit of a worry if he is a professor of any kind. Probably social science or something like that.
Gender studies.
Yeah.
I mean, another word for professor can be literally parrot, because that's all they do. They profess things. They profess what they're taught. They're just like parrots. Same thing.
They can be. It all depends on the nature of the actual teaching job. You know?
I never looked at it that way. You're onto something, Hop. A professor. He professes. He parrots.
I disagree. I consider myself a professor. I have a daily show
They should be
in
a
which
leader in
I
their
do
field.
that.
They should be an expert in their field.
Absolutely. That's like, if you're not an expert in a field, then how can you properly profess it? You're going to be stumbling all over the place. Makes you an inadequate teacher.
Yeah, Hop is
yeah.
right there. What they learned in school. That's all the school system is parroting, right? They want you to repeat what you see in a book.
Well, they say those who can do and those who can't teach.
Those who can't do teach. Those who can't teach gym.
I heard that on the sports radio today. The guy was getting on. One of the guys ripping the Yankee pitcher, and he said, "Yeah, those that can't do."
I'm fine with that. You know, a lot of the teachers deal with like not getting as far or ambitious as they originally hoped for, and then they go to teaching. But yeah, you're just, if you're actually any good at what you do and good at communicating that to younger students and all that, yeah, then you can literally cause a revolution among the younger to surpass you. And it happens all the time with good teachers. It's like, yeah, oh, this student is now better than me. That means I've succeeded. Kind of sucks in a way, you know, that yeah, I'm not as good as my student, but yeah, that's what you're supposed to do as a teacher. They're supposed to surpass you. Then you've been a good teacher. I come from a teacher's family in order to know this.
Alrighty then.
Welcome back.
Did we get the justification for the atmospheric assumption from Extremisys?
I don't think he's come off mute.
That's a negative. That's a negative.
I'm just listening.
Say again, Extremisys?
I am off mute, but I'm just listening. I'm actually working on some stuff. I've got a spreadsheet I got to update.
Okay.
I hate when work gets in the way of flat Earth discussion.
You have to speak up. I can't quite make out what you're saying. I'm really sorry.
I hate when work gets in the way of flat Earth discussions.
Oh, indeed. Although it is my work, so conflict of interest, perhaps.
The way of my work, too.
As you can hear us, maybe you can tell us about the atmospheric assumption you made. Sphere-shaped air.
I don't want to get into the discussion, as I said.
We were told when you disappeared temporarily that you're a big fan. You're always on the panel.
I'm around pretty regularly, yes.
Okay. So, I'm not attempting to get you in a gotcha. I just want to know your take on it. Because you said it.
On the atmospheric dome?
Well, when you phrase it like that, it's a contradiction in terms.
Okay, what did you want my take on?
Why you'd assume that air would be sphere-shaped?
I don't know. Never thought about it. Give me something to think about.
Okie dokie.
Well, it's about the use of words, you know. When you say atmosphere, you immediately evoke, well, what does atmosphere literally translate to?
I don't think he's dumb, Arwin. I think he gets that. He said, yeah, I'll have to give it some consideration. Well, that's good to know. That's the end of the conversation. Okay. He's swiftly drawn a close to it. Kudos to him.
All right.
To put it another way, Arwin, the smarter ones who come here know when not to speak.
Is that some kind of a hint towards me?
No, I'm saying that the GPS guy that came on, yeah, we called him a coward, but did he suffer any injury by just keeping his mouth well and truly shut? Very sensible. Now, had Bob have exercised the same dumbfounded silence, he wouldn't have suffered such horrific injuries, would he? So, in many ways, which is the better defense mechanism?
I agree. This person does seem a little wiser, and he's eager to study, apparently. I just wonder, like, what is he even concluding at this point?
Wiser, right, yeah. Yeah, he knows better. Yeah, that's right.
Or is he just wildly scribing down things, hoping to find some kind of a clue or something?
Told you, I've made the analogy many times. Just because they've rolled down the hill and gone, I hate it down here, and the people around me, who are they? They're people celebrating the fact that Earth's flat. Well, the fact that he's rolling down that hill, is here with us, and listening to every word we say, regularly, means that he's in the same boat as us. He just happens to hate that boat.
So he's like an unwilling flat earther.
Anti-flat earther, yeah.
You really only become an anti-flat earther when you really officially go against it, right? If you're kind of silent about it, that would be an unwilling flat earther, right?
Flat earthers in the title because they've rolled down the same hill, because of the same information as us, but they've got to the bottom and have gone, I must get back up there. And then they spend the rest of the time scrambling, and they see us as the people grabbing hold of their ankles, stopping them. Because we're going, no, you can't climb back up the hill. It's flat, look. There it is. No, because triangulation... No, look, that works on a flat plane, look. And they go, no, I'm trying to get up the hill and you're stopping me, so I'm going to kick you in the face.
Like crabs in a bucket.
Exactly. Crabs in a bucket. You're preventing me, but it's not even that it's crabs in a bucket from their perception. It's crabs in a bucket because they're trying to climb out and we're stopping them. But climbing out is climbing back to the dumbfounded ignorance that they felt they had when they were at the top of the hill. Blissful ignorance isn't the same as understanding why you can't be on a sphere and then saying, I don't like that, because everyone around me knows that they are.
Go off the crabs analogy. It's like going into a seafood restaurant and seeing the lobsters in the tank, and they're the ones that want to be the lobsters crawling on top of the other lobsters, saying that they're the baddest lobster in the tank.
Exactly, they want back into the nut house. Because in the nut house, none of the nutters care. They're all perfectly carefree. They've seen inside the nut house. The nut house is really well organised. Let me back in the nut house.
I had 3 meals a day in the nut house.
The nut house had men that told us everything that was going on and protected us. Let me back in. Stop stopping me from getting back in with the rest of the nutters. Nutters, by the way, just as I'm not often derogatory to normies. That's you, normies. You're the nutters.
Just like the Cypher character in The Matrix.
Not the Cypher character. The character's in the simulation where he's being shown the woman in the red dress and everyone's just walking around on the street. They're just the normies. They're the normie people that aren't in any way even slightly concerned or aware that there's Neo having explained that everything around him's not real. The people who are walking past him, even if they overheard the conversation, literally if they stopped and listened and quizzed him, would still walk past and go, what a load of old nonsense, eh? Like we don't exist. You know, in that analogy, they're the normies. But I'm saying they're the nutters because they're just at the top of the hill in blissful ignorance of what they don't know. You know, all of the seeds have been planted, all of their cognition's been given to them and is now hardwired. They're metaphorical zombies as far as I'm concerned. The person who sums this up really well is Thrice 8 Hermes. He sometimes he gets a bit morose about it, but ultimately he sums it up as just having to laugh at them. You know, you stand around watching them go about their daily business and just go, I've got no hope of getting you on one side as a random stranger and explaining to you just how deceived you are, just how much the wool has been pulled over your eyes. There's no point in trying. If I did manage to communicate with you, you may brace against it anyway. So what do you do when you watch people going about their normie lives, doing their normie things and adhering to normie controls? Well, yeah, isn't that amusing? And you laugh at it, because otherwise you'd go bonkers yourself, just in a different place. You're just no longer in the nut house going bonkers.
Right, it does make you feel powerless when you see all those things. But if you just realize, like, hey, I'm not in control, God is in control, I can only hope to ever gain more control over my own personal life and then have that reflected onto others as an inspiration, then you'll do fine. But
Not in
if
control
you-
of them. So you're not in control of the
Right.
people I'm describing as the normies walking by. And someone else has taken it upon themselves to be in control of them. You're laughing at them as a normie because of the control they're under. Well, somebody at some stage is expressing that control, and you can see it from the outside looking in, and like trying to communicate to some girlfriend that's having the crap kicked out of her by some narcissistic, psychopathic boyfriend, who she's been love-bombed by, you'll never convince him that he's an asshole. And the same applies to Big Brother. You're never going to convince anybody in the Matrix that Big Brother's evil. No way! He's the good guy. And you will be shunned for trying to tell him otherwise. So what do? There you go. I'm going to laugh about it. It is amusing. It doesn't mean that at some stages I have to put that stupid strawman coat on and get involved. Everybody here does. We're not detached. We're not living in the woods. We're not, recycling our own piss. And that's the stages you've got to get to be actually removed from the psychopathic control structure, as Thomas Sheraton defined it. Well, that control structure, it's symbiotic with your life. So appreciating that there's control structures and measures means that you can jump in and out of the straw man coat analogy, and you put your coat on, you go involved, you get your whatever it is, driving license renewed, you take it off again when you come back out, and then you go about laughing at the other normies, and then, you know, just be slightly embarrassed that unfortunately you are in a position where you have to get involved with the matrix, unless you want to take yourself off grid completely. And even then, you've still got to a certain degree, get involved to not completely die out immediately. You know, you need resources. So you're stuck here. Well, okay. Do you want to, A, become like Neil and insistent on, you know, changing the mindset of everybody else? Because that, A, leads to B, being the people that control everybody else and their mindset. So, which do you want to choose? Well, you don't have to choose. It's a false dichotomy. You can step back. And step back metaphorically is going, what am I going to do? Let's laugh at it. Because I can't do anything. Unless I want to step into the shoes of the people controlling them all and say, "Hoi, don't you understand? Let me make you understand."
Nah, that doesn't work that way. They can't handle the truth. And you might communicate something. That doesn't mean they're going to accept it. But there's this one consolidation prize, and that is over time, things do tend to sink in. People do catch on, right? Not right away, but over time, it's very likely that they will, at least a lot of them. So you can take comfort in that.
Not really. The system just moves, it restructures, it repositions itself. As an example, when we all grow up, because we're all, for the most part, the similar age in this panel right now, 10th man's a little bit older, but not much. Well, ultimately, we all grew up in the same era where we were programmed and brainwashed by television. And as that progressed, it became more television, more channels, more availability of the same thing. Well, as that's now faded into, people are recognising that you can't necessarily trust the mainstream media, and what they say on TV doesn't necessarily mean it just goes. Lots of people, your average normie, would agree with me if I said that to them. Oh yeah, I appreciate that the news lies. Of course, everybody knows that. Oh yeah? Well, why is it that you've got this apprehension about X subject that's currently being discussed? Is it because somebody that you feel you know, in your circle of friends on Facebook, happened to make a little news report, a little Facebook post about that subject, and it happened to have reached your door when people moan all day long about 95% of their posts not reaching anybody? But yet those posts that are now trustworthy because they've come from sources that you actually know are therefore legitimising the point of view that you now hold. Do you not recognise that it's the same exact system repositioned to give credibility by way of local sources giving you the information rather than next man on a TV screen that's glass and you've never seen before? It's the same thing. How did they get the information? Have you scratched the surface to find out why your friend has posted that? And you're now paying attention to that particular feed that they got from an RSS feed in the first place? Have you asked them? No, of course not. Have you been to the location that they say they were filming with the narrative that they've given you? No, of course you haven't. It was on one of the shows where I asked somebody on the panel exactly that, and they hadn't. But they don't recognise that, the new repositioning. And to spin this into the subject at hand, the same would be true if it was flat Earth. I hypothetically describe as people saying, well, yeah, we know the Earth's flat because the man on the telly said so. Well, that's a very old-fashioned, outdated way of saying it. You'll know the Earth is flat when next man on Facebook says it and gets 20 likes. And you do receive the post of them saying it. Now, is that the case currently? Are we all really chuffed with how well we do on Facebook? Oh, yeah, I'm so chuffed. All of my feed reaches all the 2,000 people I've got on there, doesn't it? Does it bollocks? No, because the person controlling the means, the channeling of the information, is the person in control of the information itself. Now, they're going to pick and choose which bits they're going to release to where, and that's no different so long as the narrative that's being released is the one they want. How does it change because it's somebody local that's telling you this? Oh, it's my mate Cheryl that made this information prevalent in my mind. Therefore, it's true. Is it? Cheryl suddenly arbiter of this political issue that's being portrayed to you by Facebook? I think not. But they'll give it credence and credibility like they did in the olden days when man on telly said it. Well, man on telly couldn't lie, they used to say. Now they don't, so now my next door neighbour wouldn't be lying about it, would they? They filmed it. We filmed it with the narrative they spun. No, they didn't.
Nathan, back to
Yes.
the original part of this. We are having an effect because father of a stolen child, just one example, heard the black swan argument and is no longer a glober.
Nonsense.
So how can
He'd
you-
already rolled down the hill. Tell me with a straight face that you weren't an anti-flat earther when you found the black swan information, John. He's not here. He's gone. Can't ask him.
No, that's not what I'm. See, this is what I'm trying to figure out what you're saying, because one way you describe it as it doesn't matter, and then the other way it does matter because people listen to the show, and they, through whether it's months or years or days, depending, say, you know what, I've been lied to. The show has really shared a lot of things, and I've checked a few things out, and I'm no longer going to be part of this the system where the psychopaths are, running the show. So how can you say you're not having an effect?
Because the effect that I have is metered and measured and divvied out at the behest of the people who control whatever structure I'm utilising. The medium that I present the information on is a controlled medium. Therefore, it is down to their discretion where that information will fall. Now, at the moment, how and where the information falls is still guided by whatever channels have been put in place by whatever method and whatever platform we would describe. At the moment, we're talking about Facebook, right? So let's keep on Facebook. Well, if your information that you've put out and moaned that you've got nobody looking at it doesn't reach anybody, but then suddenly you put something out that does, if you're of that mindset, well, I'm not part of the controlled structure because I'm me and I couldn't be a shill. This is how someone like a cum virus gets described as a shill, because from our point of view, he's not some pawn that's been fed the information because it's been channeled to him by the means that he was allowed to see it through, and then rolled down the hill and become our opponent. So, who's the bad guy? The guy that pushed him down the hill, virus, in this example? The guy that channeled the information to him to have him brace against it? Because he could be walking around on the top of that hill like a normie like everyone else. Instead, we're calling him a shill. So he's the bad guy. Is he hell? It's just some dude. Right? Who's actually lied to us about the nature of reality? They're still on TV doing it. And Neil deGrasse Tyson says, I won't get involved with the news system of brainwashing and indoctrination. I'll stay here on telly just preaching what I preach. Right? Well, meanwhile, who are we fighting with? Other normies like us. So it's us against us. He's like me. Virus is just like me. He's just a guy. But I'm fighting with him. He's fighting with me. That sounds very beneficial to the people actually in control. Leave them to fight amongst themselves. Set them against each other.
Yeah, I don't concur at all. I think you're talking more about the channel at the current time allows more reach, and then if in the future they block who you could reach, then they did something by flipping a switch or something to say we're tired of you and your comments. But while your message still getting out and people, normies or otherwise, can listen to it, now it's on them to be responsible with the information entering their mind and the way that they figure out logic. So I'm not talking about the psychopaths who control the channels that you have your show on. I'm talking about while we can reach people, the message is strong and people change when it's the right people hearing it. But if they block this channel and one day you can't be heard, well then, yeah, the psychopaths stopped it at that point.
Maybe,
No,
but we wouldn't be here doing
that's
it.
going to induce a martyr effect.
Yeah, we wouldn't
because this channel has been standing very strong, having an influence, even to those that don't officially recognize it. So I totally agree with Nathan. As long as the ones that are staring from the distance, trying to play a game on the big scale, as long as they think that we are being preoccupied and like, oh, there's still enough people that will still defend the system, to them, it's good enough.
Yeah, that's a different subject.
I don't think it is. I think it's the same subject.
I'm not talking about that.
I am.
No, what Arwen just described is a different way of looking at what's happening, and it's not the subject or the comment that I said. It wasn't for that.
It's what Nathan said.
And I told him I disagree with him.
But 10th man, if I can, something that you may not be taking into account with what you said is that people can already self-censor whatever they want, right? Like, if you don't like what somebody's saying on Discord or YouTube, you can just block that account yourself, right? So it also comes down to the mentality of the individuals, right? Because it's not just big government censoring out all the information. People have the ability to just, they think it's okay to just censor people and just not listen to what they don't want to hear.
Right. And I don't have any disagreement. I 100% agree with the way you put that sentence together. And I'm all about responsibility anyway of the person for himself or herself with the information that comes across their life from beginning to end. It's up to them what they're going to do with it. And I'm saying this show, for Nathan to say that in any way, if he says, hey, share the show and let everybody know the premiere is on. Well, what's the purpose for that? Well, of course, he's got
good point.
income. That's why
that was where I was going next. Good point. So when I say share the show, based on my description of Facebook, if I share my breakfast and they'd say that's benign, yeah, that'll keep people, melted brain or whatever. Well, that'll go out there and get 57 likes. This information, no, that shouldn't really be reaching anybody, so it won't. Well, by that standard, when I say please share the show, there's a very, very, very limited chance that it will reach anybody if they're keeping it under wraps. However, we wouldn't be here in the first place if your second scenario that you described, well, if in the future they'll just get rid of you and then you won't be able to have it. Well, no. They'd have already done that. I'm not going to name the example, but we all know what the example is currently. That is what they've done. Yeah?
Right.
Right. They haven't done that with us. That's not the case.
Right.
So you can't really come to the conclusion that, they needed to keep this under wraps. Yeah, it wouldn't have made its way out there into this particular network and means if it needed to be censored.
I never said that. I never played the psychological point that they needed to keep this under wraps. I've never looked at it that way. If the reason we exist is because they're not trying to shut it down the way. They're just putting low roadblocks along the way, as we know. But that's about it.
You're describing a controlled release.
Fine. That's not even I'm not even arguing that.
Right. Well, my argument is that we are part of the matrix in this example. And you're saying, well, I don't agree because it makes all of your asking people to share pointless. And I'm agreeing with you in that respect.
I am only on one topic on this whole thing. The news that we're sharing is powerful. It allows people to contemplate the nature of their existence. And that's not everybody. It's probably not most. It's probably a small group right now. So I am saying the show is valuable for that. And the input from every panel member is reaching somebody, whether it's a controlled release or not.
Okay, fine. Okay. So you say whether it's a controlled release or not. So let's say we zip forward 20 years into the future and somebody's showing a guided tour around the Google Museum. And they get to the section where they're describing how the programmers actually controlled the algorithm for the distribution of information of flat Earth in this example. So somebody's asking this person, 20 years ago, what did they actually do then? And they go, look, well, on this display, we've got this show called Flat Earth Debate. And what we used to do with this is we'd funnel it directly to people who would be totally averse to the idea, to the obvious and observable nature of our flat reality that we all know we live on, don't we, children? Oh, yeah, we all know it's flat. Yeah, right. Well, all the people who hated that idea, they were directly fed that show so that they would brace against it. And we used that show to directly push the people I'm saying are at the top of the hill down so that they could brace against everybody else because they hate being in that boat. And they were the only people we funneled the show to. Useful, huh? For getting the mix all stirred up nicely so that they fought amongst themselves. It was a very useful propaganda tool, that show. What would you then say, 10th? Hold on, I'm nearly finished with my example. God, hold your horses. Given that would be the description, I'm not saying that is the case, but given if that was the case, and all this show was used to do was to push perfectly happy, normal people off the cliff to become anti-flat earthers, would you then say, oh, it's perfectly acceptable even if we are part of the controlled release?
I would say to that, which I know you're saying is just a imaginary at the moment, it may or may not be true. So with that as a basis, I'd say sharing the truth, no matter who controls and doesn't control, is what this show's about. That's why we always have arguments within the group about can you validate that? Can you can't just say that, and if you say something, you own it. So where's your proof? My whole no matter how it gets disseminated, no matter how later it gets explained, speak the truth, speak it always. That's it, and it will affect people.
Okay, well, the truth is, I use a horrendous amount of electricity. So smash the super chats, smash the PayPal link, swap your energy supplier.
Support Nathan Oakley right now. I mean it, people. Nathan Oakley, Flat Earth Debate is a show you want around, and in order for that to happen, you need to support him.
Yeah, but
right? He's
thank
got
you
a
for the
family
plug.
to feed.
Thank you for the plug. I'm being dead serious. So my wife works for an energy company, hence I plug the company that she works for, and part of her dealio is to get people to join, and I'm trying to encourage that as support of my wife, and it gets me 50 quid off my energy bill. But she obviously looks at people's energy bills all day long, and one of the things that's noteworthy amongst her and her colleagues is that we use the same amount in this apartment as some small mansions use in terms of electricity. So she'll get complaints, my bill's £60. That's horrendous. What the hell's going on from a customer? Meanwhile, we're using 180 quid a month in electricity. And I'll say the same thing to my wife. How is that possible? She's like, well, you've got 3 kilowatts of amplifiers and a computer that's pulling 600 watts from the wall the entire time that you run the show, and you've got 2 monitors, one of which is a 1,000 lumen projector, and we use the dishwasher 4 times a day, and everything's electric, and you've got a tumble dryer, and she just lists off all these electrical things that I use, and she's like, your coffee machine for your 5 coffees that you have a day, that probably costs £1 every time you turn the damn thing on. It's a Stone Age coffee machine that's deeply inefficient. I'm like, oh yeah, we do actually use quite a lot of electricity, don't we? But that's another reason. I just wanted to drop that in because you're like, that's the reason we do it for truth. Well, actually, I also do it to pay the electric bill because that does have to get paid.
I was gonna, when you took over at that one point, I was saying, but we know you've stated you're first a YouTube, channel guy, and you want a YouTube channel to be successful. That's why you're even applauding other YouTubers who are successful, whether you like their content or not, because you look at it from that distinct viewpoint of, hey, look what they did. They started with nothing and they put this thing together, and now they've got so many followers and they're making money and they're doing great. Well, that's why I did this. Now, the topic happens to be obviously the nature of our Earth. So if you can't pay your bills, you can't do the show.
Well, precisely. That's why, again, I won't knock other people doing the same thing, even if they're on the other side, because from that perspective, they're just YouTubers like me, and it's a better way of saying it. I want to be a successful YouTuber rather than I've got to pay the bills, because that sounds a lot more mercenary. Oh, I've got to pay the bills. It's like, oh, you're not sitting here because you believe in the subject matter and you're deeply passionate about it? No, absolutely I am. But to be passionate about the subject matter, I also generate a lot of electricity. We use a lot of electricity. So it's worth making a note of that simple fact, just because I do actually want to encourage people to smash the PayPal link.
Yeah, they're both.
If I may, I feel like most people have that same attitude when it comes to their jobs or quote unquote careers. In fact, I worked with a pharmacist that literally said her whole purpose was a means to an end. She's just there to collect a paycheck. When it comes to the importance of the show, 10th Man, I don't want you to get deflated and think that what you're doing is not important, because it is important, but sometimes the effect that you have isn't obvious, you know what I mean, at first, or the impact that you're having isn't as clear as what you may hope to see, but it is having an impact for sure. And there was one other point I'll remember it. Oh, Nathan, just last thing, Nathan, you will or will not be upset when I figure out how to make these little magnetic Tesla boxes that'll power homes forever.
I don't care. It's not something that fusses me. Brazen claims that have no backing that are presented to me that often come with a claim of science frustrate me. But if I applaud people going out and doing this stuff. I want people to do it. I wish I was doing it. I envy them for it. great. Go out and figure out what the actual nature of our reality is. Have a look, have a taste, have a smell. Do stuff. Because that's the passion that I've got from the subject. So this is where it's like, yeah, okay, I do want you to smash the PayPal link. I do develop a lot of electricity doing the show, just to drop that in one more time. But the childlike wonder of knowing that the Earth isn't as it's been presented means I can postulate what is the sky? Why is it blue? What's the sun? All the people who go, I don't know, but let's figure it out. Let's figure out why it's doing what it's doing and how it's doing what it's doing so we can get a better of an understanding about it. I applaud you. Obviously, the other end of the extreme is zealotry in regards to what they've been told at school and brainwashed with and are re-indoctrinated with daily on adverts and pictures of globes. But the other extreme is what I'm all for. But some people want to do one of the two things we've discussed here. One is to assert their belief, carte blanche, to anybody who comes their way as being true, and that frustrates me. But also the fact that they want to be in that position to lead others with their models. And you're like, aren't we trying to get away from that? Another thing that Thrice 8 Hermes covers, which is that people always want to follow men and their models. And if you've got some model that you're adhering to, he was talking in political terms when he was talking about this. It just translated so beautifully, or metaphorically, to the literal models that people are actually using in this subject. But, you relinquish one model and you're like, oh, well, where's my next model going to come from? We hear it all the time. Oh, well, if the globe doesn't work, well, how does your flat Earth doesn't work very well? Yeah, why do you want to pick up the next model? But a lot of the people who I get frustrated with, it's not because they're looking into the nature of the Earth that I'm getting frustrated. It's because it seems to me like they've just seen that shoe falling off their opponent's foot and go, well, I'm going to put that on. Man, because I could tell all these people how and way the world works, and I'd have that authority. And check it out, man. There's a magic word that I can use of science. I'll throw that in a few times. That's a really cool trick. People really believe what you say when you use that word. I'll chuck that in and everyone will believe me. And you're like, oh, God, everyone that's following that person will just end up in the exact same boat that they were. And then you're back to, what can you do? You lean back and go, what are you going to do? People are idiots. They just want another model, don't they? Bless them. What am I going to do? Shall I go and tell them? Yeah, you've just picked up on another narc, haven't you? Another psychopath to follow with his model. You realise that? And they'll scratch my eyes out. Better off sitting off and laughing at them, aren't I?
But back to what the gentleman said. That was kind of what he said, actually. But what this has done, it hasn't got me to think that just because I took time and effort to research a subject matter like the sextant, that I have any grandiose plans other than what's obvious. What's obvious is that the nature of the show, and when the Black Swan came out, I immediately said, well, then the sextant could only work on a flat plane, and beyond that horizon, it's still got to be flat. It's got to go right through that so-called refraction that they're talking about. Black Swan is talking about if you live on a sphere, Earth curve has to be here and it can be no further than here based on the height of the observer. So when diving into it, I self-educated myself. And as you can see, the fruit of that education has been coming out on the show, and others like Mitchell from Australia and Brian and Flatzoid and others are now talking about it. The ballers are going crazy, of course. So the outcome or the ramifications of digging into something, sharing the findings, using official sources has had a profound effect on people. And if I can contribute in that way, then that's fine. But the winner of it all is me, because I went in and did a deep dive in something I would never have had done before. And I feel really good about it. I know where the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. I could hold my own on this one, and I could cite their sources. I would never have done that without Nathan's show. So I'm saying there's other people in that same path, but maybe the beginning stages, and some people have passed it. Like Huey's got so much knowledge, it's ridiculous. So he's way ahead of a lot of us. But the whole point is, It's the involvement that one puts themselves first and owns it and takes responsibility for the information and then can back it up. Now, that one thought, that one idea can change people and change the world.
And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 for either smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular significance if you drive an electric vehicle. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a day! What a lovely day!